when really at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
That's why it's really important to have a plan. Have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this DJ?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is impermanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so we can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Ladies, gentlemen, and gentlemen of all ages, I am your host for this very special guest episode. And we have a friend of the channel, a fellow crypto investor, fellow content creator, and notable public speaker who's done not one, but 2 Pulse Chain Tour events. It is none other than Donovan of D.I.Y. Investing. How's it going, man?
Thank you so much for having me. What a special introduction that was, public speaker extraordinaire. Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's an absolute pleasure to do these. This is one that I've actually been looking forward to because we got to hang out when we were in Vegas together. So I'm excited to be here and appreciate you guys having me on.
Hell yeah, well, we appreciate you making time for us, and we are stoked about the stream. Speaking of which, we have 2 of our other usual suspects on the hook with us tonight. First off, we have Agent J. What is going on, my man?
Oh, you know, man, same shit, different day. So last night we did an emergency stream going over the Fit 21 bill, kind of go over the details, why it was such a big deal, why it's going to potentially get so much bipartisan support, and that's exactly what happened. We went over a bit of the thesis over the next coming weeks to months for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Obviously, with the Ethereum ETFs, the first deadline is going to be tomorrow, so the market is kind of primed and ready. And we were kind of talking behind the green screen beforehand. Everything is kind of in the green, especially the AI stuff, because NVIDIA just came out with their Q1 earnings, and whenever NVIDIA posts posts good numbers, AI just tends to pump with it, and lo and behold, that's exactly what happened, man. But you know me, man, staying on the charts, staying on crypto, keeping my fingers on the pulse of the market. But very much excited for this conversation. I'm a big fan of Donovan's content. When I first discovered him, I think it was on RG3's stream when he had you on. I was like, wow, this guy is extremely young and he's right on the ball. And I agree with a lot of his analysis. I was like, I'm gonna check out his content, and I was kind of giving him daps in the green room. I was like, dude, there's very few people who I hear do technical analysis who not only is on the ball but is also entertaining and doesn't fucking put me to sleep. So excited for this one.
Yeah, it's a tricky slope to navigate. That you don't want to bore everybody too much because it can be a little bit boring. Not gonna lie.
True. All right, we got one more person on the panel with us tonight, and it is your fan favorite, Will Stevenson. How's it going, my man?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, I am Will Stevenson, the networker guy who also runs around the States and meets people. So it is good to be here. I'm glad to talk to you, Donovan. I was watching your stream that you did on your channel with RG3. I haven't seen the one that's on RG3's channel. I'm gonna have to swing her over and see where he interviews you like reverse style. So that's gonna be a good one. But I like your content, bro. Technical analysis is something that just totally flies right over my head. It makes no sense to me, but I do like the way that you present your style over there on your channel. So I'm stoked to hear about the stuff you got going on, and let's go ahead and hop on into this conversation, guys.
Hell yeah.
For sure. Before we get going, we have one of the favorite segments. Will, do you have your paper?
I do. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Chat Shoutouts. Chat Shoutout time, boys and girls.
That's right. We're glad to have all of you with us tonight. This is going to be a fun show with a fun guest and a fun crew, and we are looking forward to it. First up, we got Centurion54X. He said, good afternoon, D-Gens. Good afternoon to you, sir. Welcome. There's a lot of stuff going on in the space, and I know that you are keeping your eye on the ball on that one. Up next, we got The recycling bin from Windows 1998. Funk you. He says, well. Well, you'll see. Don't worry. After that, we got VX saying, here we go. Here we go indeed. Up next, we got longtime friend of the channel and a man who I think he said was on a 13-hour day right now. That is none other than Moon-Pilled Rational Optics, one of the 3 members of Dark Side of the Moon gang. So shout out to you guys for accidentally getting timed out by us when we're learning the YouTube controls. And lastly, we got The Bull. He says, what's up? I think that's a reference to that one, but if not, whatever. I'm just dating myself. All right, that is what we got for chat shoutouts. It is time to turn it over to our special guest. So, Donovan, if you don't mind, for the people at home, who are you? How'd you get into all the crypto space? And then how'd you get into the content creation? And what has that journey been like?
Yes, so thank you very much. My name is Donovan Jolly. I have the YouTube channel D.I.Y Investing. I've had that since 2018. I've been in crypto since 2016. I got into Bitcoin at $450. At that point, I had just barely spent like 45 days in juvenile detention. I turned 18 inside of juvenile detention. And so I had just gotten out of that. And then a week later, I didn't meet my friend, but it was the first time I really started consistently hanging out with my best friend. And he showed me Bitcoin. At the time, I was only interested in Bitcoin, basically just to do things off of the dark net. And so that's how I learned about it initially. But I came over there for just to learn Bitcoin for that reason. But he was showing me the chart, and then he was showing me telling me what Bitcoin was, decentralized currency, peer-to-peer payment system. You could be your own bank, all these things. And I had already dropped out of high school at this point. And so I was like, all right, well, I have to teach myself something because I knew I wasn't going to college. So then the first thing I remember looking at on YouTube was, what is money? Where does money come from? Because I figured I wanted money. That's the only thing I really cared about. So I just wanted to learn what money was. So then I watched a video about the Federal Reserve, almost instantaneously after looking it up. And that's when I was realized how big of a scam everything was. So it wasn't very long after that I had this meeting with my friend. And then he showed me or told me about Bitcoin. So it just kind of clicked in my head that this was the future. So I ended up getting some money together, bought my first Bitcoin at $450. That was right before the 2016 halving. And then I got liquidated shortly after on a leverage position after the halving. Thought it was going to go up, and then it just pulled back another 25%. So then from that point on, I was just hooked on trading, trying to learn every day. My friend was teaching me. 2017 happened. I watched my best friend go from living in a shack outside of his parents' house, like a literal tool shed. I watched him screw in a little wooden bed frame for him to sleep on in the winter because he didn't have anywhere else to go. And he had a YouTube channel doing crypto stuff, technical analysis. And so he started doing that, and his channel started blowing up in 2016 and 17. He called a bunch of different altcoins before they took off. And then it was through him that I was able to get a job working for him in his YouTube channel. And that was how I learned how to run a YouTube channel, how to run marketing with a business, how to do a lot of different things. And so then in 2018, bear market happens. He fires me. Everybody's losing their money. And so I moved back in with my mom. I went from feeling like I was on top of the world, had all this money, and then I lost it in the bear market. And then I started to learn how to trade. I paid for Bob Lucas and Bitcoin Live. So there was 4 or 5 other traders on there. And I started to actually learn and how to, take trading a little bit more seriously, how to be a little smarter. And that's where I learned 4-year cycles. And so once I understood the 4-year cycles with Bitcoin, that's when I was okay, now I have a full understanding of how crypto works. And I felt really confident with things. And that was kind of around the time where I started my YouTube channel and started to teach people kind of the same concepts I'd been learning. Because the whole premise with my YouTube channel was I'm learning a lot of stuff from courses, and the best way for me to be able to absorb information is learn it and then teach it back to people and explain it. If I'm re-explaining it, it's going to help me apply the information so I actually know what I'm talking about. So I started doing that, and the first 10 or so videos on my YouTube channel all the way back in 2018 are just how-to videos. And I started to just kind of change my content, learn how to do everything better. And then in 2020, my channel started to get a break. I started to get a lot more traction. People started to subscribe. And obviously that last cycle happened and everything kind of took off. So that's where I've kind of came into form. I've had a few, I've been in crypto for 8 years now. So I've had a few different cycles to learn. The last cycle I did really well, made some mistakes still. And I'm looking forward to this third one because I think that this is going to be the most profitable cycle we've ever seen. We're already seeing it with all the ETF and the institutional demand and all of this stuff. So I'm really looking forward to this one because I think that not only for myself, but like seeing all of the people that are going to be able to make the same amount of life-changing wealth, there's going to be people that make more money than me with less that they're starting with. And it's super fun to watch just how everybody's able to do these cool things in crypto. So we've got, the most explosive part coming with Bitcoin going into new all-time highs. So I'm really looking forward to how everything's playing out. That's kind of, my journey up to this point, how I got into crypto and, where we're at today, I guess you could say.
Dude, you've got a killer story. That's pretty awesome. So
Thank you.
If you can give the elevator pitch, or yes, what are the pillars or the foundation of your investing strategy? So like, how do you like to operate?
Yeah, so 4-year cycles, like at the foundation for sure. Understanding the cycles, I think that's the most important thing for sure. And then from there, that's a good question. I would say like the 4-year cycles for me are such like the pinnacle pillar of all of my trading and investing, that from there, like, I guess you could factor in like trading strategies with like risk management being the next big thing, because that's the thing that kind of screws most people, I would say. But then also being willing to do like fundamental research, because in 2017, there was just random crap pumping and it didn't really matter what it was. So I was under the impression that fundamentals didn't really matter with crypto, and like this was its own sort of thing, which, can be true at times. But where we're at today in crypto, like fundamentals do matter. We have to understand certain cryptos. Like if you're looking to buy stuff that's going to take off in a big way, you kind of have to understand some of the finer details with, whether it's the tokenomics, whether it's, the actual valuations between liquidity, token supplies, market caps, and these things. And also just understanding like the purpose that it solves, key narratives to fuel cycles. That's to me like the real big thing that takes a lot of years of worth of like studying to figure out, because I was more ignorant towards it. Then I started to see all these people around me making way more money being early to these things because of the fact they just knew more than I did. And then that's what really drove me to want to be a lot more like on that same level where it's like, okay, well, what can I be looking at? Like, what are these guys doing that I'm not? What trends are they constantly talking about that I don't know anything of? And then just looking into those things. So I think that that's really the only thing you can do up to this point is 4-year cycles, risk management, and then just understanding the fundamentals. Because if you can do that, you kind of have a full around sort of basis to be able to, or a foundation, I guess you could say, to be able to profit from.
Risk management is definitely the name of the game, and it sounds like you might have learned a bit of a lesson there early with the leverage. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I feel like everybody constantly loses on leverage, even like the people that win at it. Like the only thing that you end up doing is just learning how to. Crypto's tough. Like if you're not willing to really manage your risk, like you're just going to get wrecked, because you can be proven right too much, and it can get really easy to make profit when the markets are just going vertical. And then at that point, you're basically just looking at you enforcing bad habits, you thinking that you're doing things right. And then because you're not managing your risk, you take one bad trade and it just wrecks your entire portfolio, whether it was 10 or 20, profitable trades in a row that you just nailed. It makes even the biggest idiot look like they're just super smart. And I've been there. Crypto has the ability to do that. So it's like, if you're like, there's certain people that I know that are profitable without stop losses that trade with leverage. And then there's people that swear by stop losses that are also profitable with leverage. So everybody has their own way of doing things. And that's why it's like, you kind of have to just do, like, you have to know like how to play the market your own way. I would say anybody that's like never played with leverage, start with stop losses, because you're probably just going to get wrecked without. But like, it's all just part of the game where crypto's volatile. You're not a perfect machine that's going to be right about everything. And there's going to be periods of time where you're just going to make a mistake, and you're going to have to just learn to move on from that. But if you're using proper risk management, like you can actually lose more trades than you're actually winning and still profit. And if you're just doing that consistently, you don't necessarily have to be winning all of your trades. You're still just going to be earning a consistent profit the way the math works. And I'm not good at math, but the more I'm in crypto, the more I realize that like me dropping out of high school and not focusing on math as much. Really, it's just like I didn't have a very good foundation in math. So I'm always like at this point, just like, man, I feel like I'd be like an expert trader, and like I could be so good at investing if I just spent the time to relearn math and educate myself. But you know, it's all part of the thing. Like it's if you can understand those key details, you can make a lot of money, because like it's all just it's worth your time to do, in my opinion.
For sure.
Bro,
So go for it, Jay.
I was gonna say, like, I totally feel Donovan there, because you guys know a little bit of my story, right? Math, I'm not naturally inclined towards math, but the older I got and the more I realized how powerful mathematics are, like some of the best traders in the world, right? They transitioned from a career in math to a career, because they're good at pattern recognition, and so they impose those skills on the technical analysis. And it's like, oh, this is a fucking cakewalk.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Although, Donovan, I will say there is one person that I know, one of the best traders in the world, who she said she does not know stop losses and she doesn't use them. You ever heard of Caroline Ellison?
Yeah,
I knew it.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, who is this person? Yeah, I've heard of her. Yeah, she's really good. I remember.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
CEO of a hedge fund, but like, I don't use stop losses, bro. But no, I mean,
Oh, man,
all
I
jokes
heard a
aside.
rumor she got.
What was the rumor?
Go ahead. I was just gonna say I heard a rumor she got.
Well, no, I was gonna say that learning how to take stop losses, one of those important lessons that I also didn't learn until much further down along the line, because I was trying to learn all of the fundamentals and the basics first. But I think in crypto especially, and give me your thoughts on this, Donovan. People they attach themselves to this concept of hodling, right? And they hodl in both directions, right? They hodl at the very top of the bull market, thinking that there's still room for more gains, and then they miss selling, and they have to ride it all the way back down in the bear market. And in the opposite direction too, not knowing how to set a proper stop loss. It's like you mentioned, risk management. It's capital preservation, right? Even in the bull market, you have to know where to set stop losses, because even if, and Donovan put it really well, even if you lose more trades than you win, by preserving your capital, even if you're taking like 5% losses because you're getting stopped out, then you're preserving your capital and able to buy back in at a lower price point and compounding your crypto that way, right? As opposed to if you just attach yourself to this hodl forever and then you ride it all the way down to like 20, 30, 40%. Because you guys know, I mean, you've seen it during this last retracement. Bitcoin pulled back 20%. Everything else, even Solana, bro. Solana pulled back 40%. Some altcoins were still busy making new lows. So capital preservation, stop losses, bro.
Yeah, it's tough. Like you'll never really know. Like when you're first getting into the market, God, it's so hard. I remember the first time I tried to teach myself trading. Like I just basically got on YouTube and just looked up like candlestick patterns and just watched videos on these patterns and then looked up these other things. And when you don't have a reference point in a frame of mind of like time frames and like understanding like intraday versus like longer term time frames and macro movements and all of the little details when you're talking stop losses, and when you get on an exchange your first time and how sketchy everything looks with all the numbers flashing everywhere, like I know how all of that was because I was in that same situation. Thankfully for me, I was 18 years old, dropped out of high school, had no form of like any education to where like I felt like it was easier for me to go at something. Whereas like, yeah, exactly. So like somebody that's 35, 40 years old, which is a lot of my demographic of viewers on YouTube in crypto in general, like it's a little bit harder to want to like jump into something so new like that. But I feel like, getting into it, getting like a few really good teachers, that's kind of the basic thing. And like for me, the only person I even watch on YouTube, like for me, if I'm watching other people, I'm complicating my own strategy. Like there's certain people that I kind of care about for looking at with like, they maybe like call altcoins really early that I want to follow. That to me is the value of following people. But if you're looking for like technical analysts, it can be really tricky to follow them because like if somebody's just doing TA on something and then you jump into that thinking it's a trade, or, when you're getting into the markets and you don't know who to trust, who actually is profitable and all of this stuff, it's really tricky because crypto in and of itself has a lot of like people that are out there just to try and take your money, and they're trying to lead you astray and put you in bad situations. So not only do you have to like protect your capital as far as like setting stop losses and understanding risk management and knowing the details of what you're investing in, but then you also have to like be careful about like who you're trusting like with your advice, and like who you're trusting with like trading groups, and like all of these little things, even like, you know, cryptos that you're participating in. Some of these have proven to be scams. So there's just so many things in today's world that we have to kind of be a little bit more aware about. So the average person getting into the market, you know, for me, there wasn't as much stuff to stumble upon. I don't feel like in 2017, like the infrastructure just wasn't there, versus now it's like I see people getting hacked constantly. I see people having all kinds of issues. And so it's like, yes, we have more adoption. We have more ability for the average retail investor to participate in an easier manner. But at the same time, it's like there is a lot of pitfalls too. So I think that just like, you know, having some sound investors that you can follow, but then also just like protecting your capital with like, you know, hardware wallets. When you're using software wallets, always back them to a hardware wallet, like making sure that you're keeping all of your passwords in safe places, like written down somewhere, like tucked away in a safe, in a safety deposit box, like something like away from you, to where if there was a fire, if you were to ever get robbed or whatever it is, you know, you can protect yourself. It's just important to think those steps through, because I've been hacked. I had my software wallets get drained one time, and it was at the bottom of 2022. So like I just put $10,000 into Solana at $12 per SOL. It was the very bottom. I knew it was it was going to be the bottom, and so I went in, was like, all right, I think that this could be $1 million in the peak of the bull. Then it gets hacked and Solana does a 24x, and I'm just sitting here like, fuck, I knew that was going to happen too.
So do you know what precipitated that hack in?
Yeah, basically it was a fake a game that somebody wanted me to test out, like a blockchain game. And man, I don't know anything about computers. I'm like pretty retarded. Like I'm a high school dropout, like type with 3 fingers on each hand still. Like that's how I've always been. And so I didn't understand like Trojan viruses and things like that. So I literally just downloaded a Trojan virus, and then it gave him access to my software wallets. Had I had a hardware wallet connected to those, it would have been fine, which the majority of my portfolio was in a hardware wallet that I'm like, you know, just holding long term, that I'm not even connecting and signing transactions with. So at least for the sake of that, you know, like I was good, but that was still like 65 grand or something that got wiped out in that time, which today it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry.
Oh man, Solana, bro. At 10, what was it? You said $12?
$12, yeah. 12. I posted signals in my group from $15 all the way down to $12. So I can't remember the exact price that I got in at, because I bought it a couple different times.
That's brutal. This is a personal opinion on this one, but I've seen a lot of like collective, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? The skill cap of everyone in crypto collaboratively has gone up over the time, but I think the cybersecurity aspect of it has been one of the areas that's been lagging a bit, which is that unfortunately we operate with this stuff that can be super technical, and there's a million different ways to try to get at people. At the end of the day, a lot of it is just a Nigerian prince on Twitter trying to send you a Bitcoin so he can escape his country. But we are experiencing more things where, like exactly what you talked about, it's Trojan attacks where you think you have a piece of trusted software and they come at you, and that's how they get you. I think there was another person in the Pulse Chain space recently that got drained.
Right, yeah. I messaged her about that because I was like, yo, the same thing happened to me too.
Yeah, I was like, bro, the game thing? I was like, oh, that's a familiar story in, in the community.
I had a reoccurring nightmare over that. I had 3 of them. The first one happened like a day or 2 after like I got hacked, which like I woke up from a nap in the middle of it happening, and I just had like this feeling, and I looked at my wallet and just saw everything getting siphoned, and all of it was pretty much gone at that point. So I managed to like salvage a couple NFTs, but nothing really. And after that, like the next day or 2, I remember having a dream where I was like getting hacked all over again. And then like I just woke up from the dream and was like, oh, thank God it didn't happen again. And then there was like a week later, I had the same dream, and I realized it was happening in the dream, forced myself to wake up, and then I like went right back into the dream once I fell back asleep. And then it like enforced that it was real. Like I thought it was a real dream from that point. And I was just like, when I woke back up, I was like sweating and like was so disorientated, thought that it was like actually happening again. And thankfully from there, it never happened. But yeah, it was like, it's kind of crazy when you get hacked like that. It's literally like you've been violated. Like it's like a weird, uncomfortable feeling that it like you wouldn't imagine, but you know, thank God it wasn't like all my portfolio, because like there's a lot of people that get wrecked for everything. And I've had, you know, so many people message me for tons of money that they've been scammed for. And I can only imagine all the other ones that are just like too embarrassed to even come forward with what they've lost. Cause I didn't even really say anything about it. I was like, nope, I'm embarrassed about this shit. Like I'm going to take my licks and go home. Like I'm not telling shit about this. But now at this point, I'm like, you got to tell people, cause I want people to stay safe. And that was my mistake. And I don't care about it anymore. It's whatever.
Oh, definitely. You got to let people know what's out there. Otherwise, no one's going to see it coming. Believe me, I'm sure that MetaMask support on Twitter has a rather large wallet at this point, and it's unfortunate for sure.
It's you guys got hacked, J or Z?
No,
where's
sir.
Where's a piece of wood?
I am very, very careful with my internet hygiene, precisely because of all the stories that I've heard. And so I do not interact with anything. If I don't know the email, if I don't know the number, if the website hasn't been verified, I don't click, I don't sign, I don't do anything. And even then, I'm still paranoid, bro, because like who knows? There's a lot of smart people who want to take your money, and they want your money more than you want your money. So
yeah, that's one of the sketchy things about being a public figure in the crypto space is like, I'm not so much worried about my situation. Like I'd be like actually worried if I was like some big person, like you would probably have to be pretty big to get somebody to want to actually try and put a hit out on you. But like it happens all the time. There's people that are getting beat up and robbed and stuff. And where I live, I'm not like worried about it even slightly, but you really never know when some person just decides to, like finds out your information and just decides to come and like look and see what you've got at your house. So it's like in today's world, you kind of got to be a little bit more careful than we've ever had to before, because there's pretty much no more middle class. So you just have like people that are struggling versus people that are doing really well, and it's like kind of getting more so that way all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think crypto is definitely illuminating, because I believe, at least it seems like to me, that the 2000s all the way up into where we are now, right? It's become an environment of people being comfortable with putting everything out on the internet, so privacy isn't really a priority for most folks, right? And so, and I'm sure you've noticed this because you have your own community, but people have a tendency, like for example, there was a member in our Telegram earlier, and this person asked, "Hey, I just saw a hidden token in my wallet, and it's worth $10,000. What do I do with it?" And we were like, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. It's probably a scam. Just hide it. Don't interact with it. And you know, we speak about this stuff, and we don't really think too much of it because we have pretty good internet hygiene and we have good risk management. But I realize that most people entering, they're beginners, and privacy is not first and foremost in their list of priorities. And that's why we hear so many people stories of people getting hacked, because they just don't know that privacy is the most important thing. They'll take a picture of their seed words because that's how they've always kept their passwords. They save their passwords on the cloud because that's how they've always kept their passwords, right?
It's just crazy because there's just a lot of people that are falling. Well, I mean, like, we grew up in the internet. I've always understood these things. Like, we're a little bit more tech savvy than the average person, but like the average person, thank God for me having like a friend that would just happen to be like, you know, a little bit more of a nerd. Cause like I learned everything that I know about crypto, and it was because of him that I was able to even, you know, branch out and learn my own things. And so I understand wholeheartedly how hard it is to do some of this stuff. Like, you know, if I run into a problem on my computer, like I'm struggling just in doing that. So trying to navigate the blockchain and stuff, like, my God, I really do understand how people feel when they come into the market, which is also amazing when I see people that come in And then they've already got hardware wallets set up. They've already bridged across multiple blockchains. They've already got like everything set up and tucked away into like a secondary ledger that they don't sign anything with. And like, they're like super ultra, like ready to go and safe on the web. And I think that that's just like really cool, because the better, like the more that you start doing that right off the bat, like it seems overwhelming at the first, and it is a little bit more complicated, but it's not that much worse. And if you do have like now that we can just connect like software wallets to hardware wallets, like you get the best of both, and it really isn't that difficult to be able to, you know, kind of combine forces, because you really are just one bad like signature away from just your entire portfolio getting wiped in one go. And it's so sickening to see, but it happens constantly.
Yep.
Been there. Yep.
You too, Will?
Yep. I got hacked doing some dumb shit, bro. I should say I didn't get hacked. I signed a thing that allowed somebody to take my assets out of my wallet because I wasn't reading it, and I was like, oh, I'm on this cool new website. Click, 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 click. Oh, there goes my Trump NFT. Oh, there goes all my Hedron. Oh, there goes all my Acosa. Oh, son of a bitch.
My
This
goodness.
wallet's drained. I didn't have a whole lot in there. It was a couple $100, but like I was bummed out that I lost my Trump NFT.
Yeah, that's
So this was back when I was like first starting in like
Were they
actual
Series 1, Will?
cryptocurrency. What's that?
Were they the Series 1?
I think it was the Series 2.
Okay, I mean,
It was
still,
like,
bro.
yeah,
One
it
of
was like
those is a
couple
lot
$100.
harder to lose than the other.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. But
no kidding.
yeah, so I was just like, son of a bitch. Well, I done goofed that one. All right. And then I almost did the same thing not very long ago when Friend Tech it did something recently. They just like migrated over to a new thing. I was just like on a Twitter thing, and they're like, Friend Tech is migrating to this new thing. And then there was like a Friend Tech official post, and then right underneath it was something that looked exactly like Friend Tech official, and it was like, click here to go learn the instructions. And I was like, okay, la di da di da, click click click. And I was like, I was like going to the website, and it was like, we need permission to access all the stuff here in MetaMask, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. But so I did it with a condom wallet, and then it was like, we need more permissions, and I was like, we need more permissions. I was like, this is a little bit strange here. So I'm slowly learning, but it's a work in progress. I just my dumbass has only lost a couple $100, so it's nothing crazy.
God.
But yes, be careful. For you guys that are on Telegram, turn off the ability for other people to add you to their groups, because people will put you in groups that look the same as the legitimate groups, and then they'll spam messages all over the place, and they don't last very long. But like, and on the off chance that you happen to see it and believe it, that's what happened to me anyways. So like this peanut brain over here got tricked into thinking that a fake group was a real group, and I just happy go lucky.
You guys remember that same thing happened when ASI was announced? As soon as the announcement came in, they're like, hey guys, we're airdropping the new ASI token. Like literally on Fetch's like Twitter. Like as soon as they made the announcement, they were like, hey guys, we haven't merged yet. There is no ASI token yet. And then literally like multiple posts after that one, hey, we're gonna airdrop you the new ASI token. And there are people clicking on it.
All they need is a couple, man. They just need a couple, and then it's like, bing, there's the money. Money flows so fast in this world, dude. It's so
humans
cool.
are just so emotional that we're greedy. We want to get things like people that are good at marketing know how to pull that emotion out of people to get them to drive towards, buying a product. And so with hackers, and it's interesting how they are able to do all of this stuff, because I mean, for me, if I had the notifications turned on from Fetch's Twitter and then they dropped something like that, knowing that there was, this merger that's going on, I would even that would I would think twice on it for sure. I'd be thinking the whole time. But so I understand why somebody would fall for that, but at the same time, it's just one of those things where when everybody says airdrop, you just got to wait a second, because like you're better off just confirming, because chances are you're not going to run out of anything. Most all airdrops are pre-qualified. I've never really heard of an airdrop where you got to go and sign over and do things before. It's more like, well, it's more like you've already been using the platform, and then they just qualify you that way. So anybody that just announces something and it's like, here you go, free coins. Yeah, you
Mhm.
should watch out, because that's like the most common way that everybody gets all greedy and jumps into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
There
sure.
was a mutual I don't know if Will or Z might know him, but this was from a prior course that we took together. There was a gentleman in there who recently came on. He's like, "Hey guys, I should have some Gala V2 in my wallet, but I don't see it." And then this person just messaged me saying that if you sign this transaction, the Gala V2 will be airdropped to your wallet. And then everybody was like, "Nope, that's definitely a scam." Like that fork happened a very long time ago, and like you feel bad for these folks, because that's telling me that not only do you know that this is a fraudulent individual, but you obviously weren't also paying attention to the fact that the fork happened way long ago. So it's like, not only do you have the technical skills to do it, but you've also been checked out. So like it's so bad.
Bro, people go to like people who like go into comas or like go to jail or find themselves, deployed or whatever without access to the internet. Like, I feel real bad for them sometimes, because like you miss, like I feel stupid if I miss a couple days in crypto, man. Like if I miss a week or if I miss a month or if I'm like snoozing for half a year, dude, it's like you missed out, man. You missed out like on a lifetime of information.
Yeah.
Whole ball game
Anytime
at
I
that
go
point.
camping, there's this spot and there's just like no cell coverage at all. And you're just fishing for the whole weekend out down in there. And like, I'll be sitting there at the fire, just kind of like wondering what the hell is going on with crypto. Cause you know that like in 3 days, that feels like an eternity, because it's 24/7 the whole way. So you're just like, any big red candle could happen. And so it's just tough to like, you can't leave positions open and feel very comfortable without, you're going to constantly have a little bit of anxiety depending on what you're messing with. But it's also nice to get out and like try and get yourself away from thinking about that stuff sometimes. Like in the bear market especially, I was like, it was really healthy for me to just go and experience new stuff, because what you end up seeing is, so like, people are emotional. So in the comments in the bull market, it goes, "Oh, you're so smart, we all love you, everything's positive." To then in the bear market, "This guy's an idiot, he's wrong about everything, like I hate you." And it goes completely 180. And like, I was sitting there in the bear market like, what in the hell, man, this is
It gives you
this is
whiplash, huh?
savage. Yeah, exactly. So like it's all part of the emotional cycle, which is why it's like, you can learn a lot in these markets navigating them, but it's also good to take a break. It's just as fun to be, I look at 30-40 charts a day, every single day. I'm trading every day and I love it. Like, it brings me a lot of excitement, but at the same time, like, it's good to just jump out and go do some things and kind of plug out for a little bit, because like, you can drive yourself insane if you're just sitting in your room all day long only doing this. Thankfully for me, I've got a lot of family close by and stuff, so like I spend a lot of time doing things with them. But like, if you're just sitting here trying to learn trading and like just getting into crypto, chances are you're probably like missing out and doing a lot of mistakes. And so if you're only like cooking yourself up inside all day long and you're just sitting here, like, it can be a little bit unhealthy. But I loved it in the beginning. I used to just sit on my computer all day with my friends trading. It was just like the most addictive thing I've ever experienced. So, to each their own, I guess.
Yeah.
It is like the best form of gambling.
Yeah, because you can win.
Yeah, you can win if you do it the right way. You can win real big.
Which you can win gambling, but I don't know how the hell they do that.
That's just people getting caught up in the moment, and then ultimately variance over the long term will win, and that house edge is going to get you every time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm going to interject here real quick. We got a lot of chats stacking up. Everybody is very, very excited about this stream. And we even have a question for you, gentlemen. I'm going to go ahead and toss you the question first so you can think about it while I'm saying hey to everybody. We have a question from Trace Gates, 1995. He says, "I was curious about this upcoming wave for INC token." And then we also had another one from the Bull, who's asking about where do you see Incentive Token going this bull run? So you guys think about that one. I'm going to run through the rest of these, and we'll toss it back over to you, and you can show the people your skills and even do a screen share if you desire.
Yeah, cool.
Alrighty. Cool. Up first, we have one of our very own. We have the Ascending Man. aka Nate. He says, I think Donovan started crypto when he was 18. It sounds like he did. Yeah. Young gun on the crypto there. Up next, we have new doctor, Dr. Sloth. Yo. Good to see you,
What up,
man.
Doc?
Up next, we have Mr. Angry Twinkie. He says, this is going to be a good one. Yes, it is. It's already good, and it's going to get better. Up next, we got another one. A good friend of ours, Chocolate Taint, a.k.a. Josh. He says, dude needs to write a book. Agreed. You gotta. I told you, you got a killer story, dude. There was people calling for Netflix documentaries or web series or whatever. So there's
Hell
that.
yeah.
Yo, real quick note on that: writing a book is very easy. If you just like dictate into something that records your voice, get a transcript, shove that shit into Chat GPT, say kick me out a story outline, and then fucking fill in the gaps, dude. Like writing a book is
You're
so
not
fucking
wrong.
easy, man.
You're not wrong. Well, there we go. Maybe that's my next venture.
Bro, fucking storytelling, man.
One way to do it. I think Will is actually a 2-time published author at this point. Is that
Working
correct?
on number 2. My
Who?
kid's book.
Working on number 2. Okay.
Oh,
there we go, there we go.
nice.
Yes, I
See, okay, so that was genuine advice then from a good source.
Yeah, he wrote a cookbook
Power
with his
Climbers
brother.
Cookbook.
That's dope.
This is me over here. I'm much older, and then this is my brother, who is also much older. But yep, we wrote a Tower Climbers Cookbook. This one wasn't much of a book, but it was very fun. And actually, shit, I've written 3 books now. Shit, because I wrote my book, and then I wrote that, and then I just finished writing another children's book like yesterday. So it's super easy, guys. Go on Chat GPT and start cranking out books. We need more signal to noise or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But Zenith, take it away. Give us some more chats and things before I.
For sure, we're almost there. Up next, we got Blockchain Bay, who joined us for one of the previous Whiskey Wednesdays. Glad to see you back for another one. Not quite a Whiskey Wednesday, but we do have a special guest on. Whiskey Wednesday will be next week, by the way. So if you want to hop on stream with us, chat, hang out, and toss one back, that is what we will be doing at the usual time next Wednesday. Up next, we got Trace Gates. This is the question from earlier. He says, Donovan, what kind of price target could we potentially see for incentive on this next wave? P.S. Longtime lurker here, but never subscribed. LOL. Just did. Well, we're glad to have you, my man, and glad we can provide some value for you. All right, up next, we have the other half of the question from the Bull. Says, question for Donovan. Hopium for incentive token. Where's it going? Got that one. And then 3 more. We got Paul Sachs. Good to see you, brother. He says, rum. Where's the rum? I thought it's why is always the rum? Why is the rum always gone?
Okay, Johnny Depp.
There you go. There you go.
Tequila.
Not quite rum, but Will's got something close for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last 2. We got Crypto Compassion saying, "Hey y'all, good to see you, my man." And last but not least, we have Alan Fizame saying he hates everyone equally at all times.
Except me, man. I'm Alan's favorite person.
Yeah.
Or favorite Asian, at least. Ain't that right, Alan?
Maybe, I don't know. I think earlier in the chat, Twinkie was saying that you might be letting down your ancestors with that whole math thing.
Oh, yeah. Dishonor dance
that's
sisters?
right.
Is it a math thing? Absolutely, man.
You're gonna have to go commit Sudoku now, Jay, or whatever it is, whatever the Sudoku equivalent is down in
harakiri.
Thailand or the Filipinos. What's that? Harakiri.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, harakiri. That's the one.
All right, boys, we're going to kick it over to talking about incentive token. I presume this is the one on the Pulse chain because we are kind of Pulsekins primarily. So that's what we got. Gentlemen, what do you think? Donovan, I'm going to pass it over to you. If you have a screen you would like to share for a chart or anything, let us know. Sure. We can pull it up. And I think the question was bull run and then also next wave for Elliott wave. So
gotcha.
Looking forward to tearing into a chart with you.
All righty. Let's edit these, make them look real pretty.
All right, you are live, sir.
Cool. You can see my screen?
Yes, sir.
And
all righty, let's pull her up. Right here. Honestly, I love how ink looks.
Yeah, it's the cleanest
There's
chart
nothing there.
out of everything.
Look at that.
Oh, baby. It messed my thing up again. Hold on, boys.
God damn, this is fastest clicks in the West.
Been doing this for 8 years straight.
You got
All right,
10,000
so
hours, bro. There we go.
For the wave count, if I zoom out on a log scale, it'll put it into perspective a little bit better. So like with Elliott waves, they go in sets of 3. So wave 1 starts the initial hype, This is usually where most people are even like, they're not buying it because they don't even realize it's happening. Wave 3 is the biggest. This is where like the most volume, the biggest impulse usually comes in that wave. And then sometimes in wave 5, it can actually overextend and be even bigger, but it's kind of a toss up what that one will be. Usually it'll be around like the same size as the wave 1. Now we've only finished that first impulse. So what this entire correction just recently was basically our first ABC correction, which turns this entire move into a wave 1 and a wave 2. And we're about to be starting like a much bigger macro impulse, which is going to be the one where I think we go to like new all-time highs. So the way we would look at that, you can look at Fibonacci, but when we're talking about incentive token, I don't think that we should try and pick tops necessarily, because like, you know, we can pull up the fibs and we can look at the minimum target, and the minimum target we'd have to go to is $18. So if you were looking like the very bare minimum of where you would want to take profit, I would say there. But, you know, that's not even retesting the prior all-time high. So for me, I'm not really looking at Fibonacci for determining where this is going to go, because I really am not going to be the least bit surprised if this thing kind of just runs all the way up into a very big move. Maybe it goes all the way into a new all-time high. Maybe it's right around those prior all-time highs. But I'm fully expecting that this thing's going to, you know, make an absolutely massive move very soon. Now, doesn't have to be quite that parabolic, but the thing about, you know, these cycles that most people don't realize is as they're just in the early stages of making these first impulses, there's more volume down here at the very cycle, or the, you know, pretty much the cycle of these first breakouts that we're experiencing than what we saw even all the way over here accumulatively at the cycle top, where, you know, you're talking from where we're at now to the cycle top is 25x. So I think the ink is so important because we're going to see so many people rush to be able to farm it, because like, you know, I know somebody close to me that put 250K worth of USDT and Pulse into a farm, and they're earning $40,000 worth of ink a month. So if that $40,000, if they just hold that, and we're talking ink just goes to the prior all-time high at 25x, you know, the amount of money that's $1 million a month that they're pulling out. So the amount of money that even if you were earning like $100 a day or $1,000 a week, you know, $500 a week, whatever it is, that's going to be worth a lot more money. So when people see how lucrative it is to farm, they're going to be really like chasing the price. And I think that that's what's going to cause this thing to shoot up. And we should see, you know, this thing, you know, go up a lot quicker than people are going to expect. So where I would say, I mean, I think we're at the minimum going to go to the prior all-time highs, but I think that we could easily see a $200 ink. The interesting thing about this is we don't really know how high it's going to go. We don't know how much adoption Pulse Chain is going to get. We don't know what, you know, PulseX is going to do. We don't know if Richard's going to add any further adoption farms, anything like that. But regardless, I think the ink itself is, you know, if we just see a consistent amount of new all-time high growth inside of the Pulse Chain chart, inside of PulseX, then this thing's going to do the exact same thing. And I don't see a real reason why we can't, from like right here, approximately $200 would be 64x, but 100x would be like $300 almost exactly. So I think we could for sure 100x from here. Let's just call it an even $300 just to give everybody an exact target. I think we could 100x from here and maybe even do more than that, which is why I always tell people, you know, if you're focusing on Pulse Chain, focus on the actual, focus on ink, because I wouldn't mess with Hex personally, even though a lot of people are a lot more bullish on Hex than I am. I think that people are much better off actually just going into incentive token, because even if you're not farming it, just holding spot, it's going to probably do like 3 times the ROI as whatever any of the other ones end up doing. So that's just my thoughts as a whole.
Okay, I guess we can have a little fundamental analysis question around this one, which is, one of the well, I'll put it this way. There's 2 points I want to bring up. First is incentive token. I think it's had a bit of a narrative shift over the last year, because initially we had it and we saw it as an only down to the right token, because it didn't really look like there was a use case for it, and it was only done through farming. So it was just this like thing that is infinitely going to get pumped out. So what's the actual use for it? And then around when we had that giant pump after it went off that low of about 30 cents, if I'm not mistaken, and then I think it went, did it go back up to $10? I want to say somewhere around there, but it was that was the area where I think the narrative shifted for a lot of people, where they're like, oh, this is not just a forever down to the right token. This is something that actually has the ability to pump, and honestly even pump harder than the rest of the tokens that it's tied to. So the second half of the question is, do you think that incentive token is tied down to the Richard Hart tokens like Pulse, PulseX, Hex? I mean, you kind of alluded to it there, which is that probably not. But I feel like when we see a lot of the daily movement and stuff, everything's pretty tied closely together. But then every once in a while, we see those breakout moments where like PulseX will run harder, incentive token will run harder. I don't think we've seen Hex really have a moment like that, other than when we had the great E-Hex, P-Hex debacle earlier in the year. But that's about it. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, the thing about Ink and why I was most bullish on it when it first started to break out at like $8 and $10 was because I noticed, well, the volume was the big giveaway. I was like, holy shit, there's a bunch of people buying this. And anytime you're looking at like the beginning of a cycle and there's that much volume coming in, those are some of the best setups you can buy. And they've always been some of my most profitable ones. Because for me as an analyst, I like to look at cycles that have had a prior bull market, because oftentimes you can look at just targets to the prior all-time high as like a reference point for like what you're going to be able to target long term. So you got to, not all cryptos are going to go into a new all-time high. You might pick that laggard that doesn't do anything, but this cycle is going to be kind of unique. And so when I'm looking at incentive token and we can see a target just to the prior all-time high of 25x, the thing I liked about incentive token was it had a lower market cap. It had lower liquidity than all of the tokens it was paired to, because it's paired to P-Hex, it's paired to PulseX, and it's paired to Pulse. They all had a lot of liquidity. So I knew by default that it was going to cause Ink to rise. And when we look at it, it has a lot of liquidity now. Like I think Hex is actually the one that has the least amount of liquidity. But I just don't think that there's really any like reason that people are going to like flock to Hex, especially after like the FUD that happened with E-Hex. I just look at that as like, well, I don't want to lock into a contract when I could go farm for Ink and Ink will actually outperform, and I can like keep my PulseX and keep my Pulse, because a lot of people sacrifice for both of those. So, a lot of people are just holding those tokens. They could be farming them and then just earning Ink at the same time. The impertinent loss you would experience between farming PulseX and Pulse is almost identical, because the prices are the same. So PulseX is going to outperform Pulse, but the impertinent loss that you would experience, you would just be gaining more Pulse by default. And so the difference wouldn't be that much that I wouldn't feel worried, versus the difference you're making by actually earning the incentive token, an incentive token going up, 25 to 100x from here. It's going to outweigh any of the rewards you would get from Hex. You don't have to actually have a locking period. And I think it's a little more technical. There is more risk involved. And so I understand people's thoughts with focusing on a long-term stake. But for me, it's like, I mean, with what I know, it's a way better opportunity. I think that the risk to reward is still better to just go for Ink, even if you have to just like dedicate a little bit more time. Crypto Sloth is a great person. He's watching this, or at least was. He's somebody that everybody should look at for learning about liquidity and stuff, because like it was some of his videos that I started able to get a grasp on things, because I'd never looked into it that much. But once I did, that's when Ink was like, oh man, this thing is like really valuable. Like I can see why people are going to be wanting to buy it. I can see why, whales will flock to it, because they can earn so much of it if they're just holding, PulseX and Pulse and USDT, USDC, DI, any of these stable coins. So, I just think that there's a lot of value behind it.
I like it. Jay, what do you think about incentive token? Charts, FA?
Well, so in the beginning, I already told you guys I'm a big fan of Donovan's content. If I were to give you my thoughts, it would basically be repeating exactly what he said. For those of you in the chat, you guys are probably thinking, wow, Donovan sounded like a lot like Jay there, because that's what Jay's been saying. I was very upfront with the community in the very beginning. I told them, because of the case that Zenith made, a lot of us faded Ink. And then we saw exactly what you spoke about. And now our thesis has shifted dramatically, right?
Yeah.
Incentive, when you compare it to all the other RH tokens, it has performed the best. And the people, and I've said this in the chat multiple times. If you're just holding PulseX and PulseChain, you should be taking a portion of that capital and farming incentive token, because the people who are literally winning the most in PulseChain are the people who are farming incentive token, because at the very minimum, they are creating more capital in that way, right? They're not just sitting watching this volatility take place. Now, as far as the only thing I would add to the analysis is that, look, Donovan's right. We don't know where this ecosystem is going to go, and so like the fib targets are not as reliable as as an ecosystem that has had some maturity, right? Because we have a lot of history to pull from. What I will say is, what you can go off of is you can compare it to other cycle 1 successful coins, right? If you do a fib analysis on new tokens, whatever it is, Bitcoin, Ethereum, you're going to notice that even on like the macro wave 3s, right, which is where we're headed for the RH ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right. For the cycle 1s, the macro wave 3s have a tendency to not just be the most bullish in terms of the magnitude of gains and the amount of volume coming into it, but it usually blows all the fibs out of the water.
Yeah, exactly.
As in, like, the common extensions for a wave 3 are like the 1.618, the 2, and the 4.618, and for cycle 1 coins, that they usually don't follow that. If they get that bullish. So that's the only thing that I wanted to add. But Donovan's analysis was spot on, bro, both fundamentally and from the technical standpoint.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Honestly, it really is like where we're at getting into Pulse Chain, going into a wave 3. Like when I first came over and made charts on Pulse Chain, because I'd sacrificed, Richard Hart got sued, everything dumped. I was like, whatever. It probably is going to fade into obscurity. And then I was just like, I came back over and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to actually look at this thing and see what my investment is doing. And so I came back over, looked at the charts, and I was like, holy crap, these look bullish. These look really good. And I knew that they were going into a small, like a shorter term wave 3. And so I made my charts, and that's exactly what everything did. It was right when Pulse Chain first broke out. PulseX and Inc. all first broke out. And so at that point, I was pretty much just like following along with this macro setup. Now, I didn't know how deep this wave 2 was going to be. I didn't know how bad Pulse and PulseX and everything was going to pull back. But for me, seeing how well Inc. is still holding up and PulseX still is holding up pretty well. Pulse is obviously underperformed, but they all look good to me, they don't look bad to me in any sort of way. And because they are a brand new cycle, and because this was just the first little impulse in a bigger macro view, I think a lot of people were freaked out. There were still a lot of people that were trying to capitulate. There were people that were bag holding, that, sacrificed, that just wanted out, felt like they needed to chase Ethereum or chase Bitcoin or chase something else. And so you have to go through that phase where you're shaking out those people. But if you're looking at like the Wall Street cheat sheet from a psychological point of view, this is what's called the disbelief phase, where nobody thinks anything's going to really reverse. And then that's right before the whole cycle sets off. So when I look at everything, all Pulse Chain is in that big disbelief phase. We're in that first little impulse before we go into a much more macro parabolic cycle. And, whatever that's going to be, I don't know how heavy Pulse Chain is going to perform versus the rest of the market. But regardless of that, I really love Pulse Chain because the big thing I liked about it was the idea that, hey, what about all these forked tokens? Like I thought it was an interesting thing. I didn't know to the extent of what that narrative was going to bring with like P.D.I. and stuff, because then once I started to understand P.D.I., that's when I was like, holy shiz, this is like one of the greatest narratives I've ever heard in all of crypto. Because if they were to peg it with a maker and make sure everything works efficiently, with Richard having so much DI holding, it really would be the only decentralized stablecoin that they couldn't control. So I just think that there's so much value in something like that, that was created just through forking, Ethereum. And I was just looking through one of my wallets, like my main wallet that I hold my Chainlink in, and my forked tokens, the new Chainlink token over here, they're already worth a few $100s because they've been pumping. So it's really funny to see how all of these other random tokens are starting to pump. And I know for a fact that if I'm getting tokens that are worth a few $100s in my wallet, in Pulse Chain does a 10x from here and did new all-time highs, all of those other, obscure tokens are going to go up, substantially. And so that's going to cause people to bridge over here. And I'm starting to see, all of the like Richard Hart annoys me. I'm not even going to lie, but the dude's smart. He creates a lot of value and he's a genius marketer. And I'm not going to deny any of that stuff. So as much as he gets on my nerves and, irks me sometimes, the dude like really knows how to create value. And so with all of what we've seen on Pulse Chain, it makes me excited because I'm excited for all of the fork tokens. I was always really enamored by that narrative from the get-go to see what's happened with PDI and the Atropa ecosystem and everything else. You know, looking at all of these other fork tokens like the P Maker fork, that thing's been pumping really hard. I see so much, you know, narrative and so much hype that can fuel narratives that is really like narratives that fuel price appreciation. That's where all the profit comes in. And I think that there's just so many narratives to follow on Pulse Chain that, you know, regardless of if they're real or not, regardless of if PDI pegs, there's going to be a lot of people that will end up bridging over here just because they find money just sitting in their wallet from the forks that have happened. So, you know, I think that it's going to be an interesting thing to see how much money comes on chain. You know, Pulse Chain was ranked 10 in TVL top 10 not even that long ago. So I don't think that it's impossible that it can't reclaim those ranks. It's just that we're in that sort of disbelief phase.
Yeah.
Once we get outside of that, I think it's all, you know, going to be a lot more fun from there.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think you hit it right on the head there, right? We're in the disbelief phase, and it's going through the route of every single cycle one coin, right? Even more so, I think, because of the narrative behind Richard Hart and his ecosystem. But you know, we've been talking about Elliott waves a little bit over the span of this show, and what you guys know, you've been following us for a while. You know that wave twos have a tendency. One of the reasons why they have the tendency to be the steepest and the harshest is because, like Donovan alluded to earlier, and like we have spoken about plenty of times here when we do TA, is that during wave twos, especially on cycle one coins, that trend has not been established yet, right? That's why that correction is so steep, is because people are, like he said, in that disbelief phase. They think that the pump is just that, it's just one and done, and then we're going to go back down and look for new all-time lows. But that's not the case, right? And that's precisely why we always, like, we're broken records here sometimes. We iterate a lot of these concepts because we don't want you guys to panic when a cycle one coin corrects so steeply during the wave two, because that's just part and parcel of how the technicals go. And we've seen it over and over again. So that's why, like, when Donovan sees it, when I see it, we're like, it doesn't really bother us. Just go farm incentive.
Yeah. Well, that's the fun thing. If we're looking at incentive token being like the fundamental liquidity layer of Pulse Chain, in my opinion, because that's what's going to drive people to want to provide liquidity and actually farm, is the incentive token. And it's really never been like, I've not seen it been done before to the extent of Ink. And I think it's such a unique value proposition that it's going to ultimately bring a lot more liquidity over. Because if people realize that there's this crazy, you know, token that's just a reward token pumping like crazy, and they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of USDC or DAI just sitting there that they could go and actually provide liquidity with, there's going to be a lot of upside potential and reason for people to actually bring money over here. I would love I would love to see Richard add some support, more farms really through PulseX, or at least more ability for that to like kind of happen. But regardless of that, you know, I still think that there's going to be a significant amount of upside potential with incentive token as a whole, just because when we're seeing it already looking like, I mean, it's holding up the best. It looks like it's the most ready to reverse. You know, it's sitting on a major support. Yeah, exactly. I think that it's kind of the early signal that if it looks good, then everything else is going to shortly follow very, very soon. So.
Donovan, if you got time for one more question, I know you had a 1 hour
oh no,
cap
we're good to keep going.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I capped it in an hour because I didn't know how my voice was going to hold up, but we're doing pretty solid.
Hell yes. So Kai in the chat has another question. I don't know if you've been able to participate in some of these meme coins that the Tangang has released, but he wants your thought on it.
Yeah. So I'm going to be completely honest. I cannot stand the Tangang people. They have been so up my A for like the whole time since I came over to Pulse Chain, nonstop. I don't know why. Like well, I actually do know why. So we botched the launch on Pulse Launch. Obviously, that we screwed that up. Our batch sender failed, and then our batch sender screwed up and duplicated like 100 transactions. And then we had the PDI thing where 5 people deposited PDI, and then because the contract was the same and we pulled the data from DBank, since the freaking block explorer on Pulse Chain never works, we didn't look through that, and so it was our fault that we screwed that up. But we had to pull liquidity to make it right, because like we're like, okay, well, we're either just going to have to like pretend nothing happened even though there's some problems here, and then we just pray that nobody realizes, or we just, pull the liquidity, refund everybody that gets screwed over in the LPs and whatnot, and then make it right from the get-go, so we can just guarantee the project is, how we need it to be. So we pulled the liquidity, made sure the tokens were good, did a test send for relaunch token, did that. And then we made sure all of that was good, made sure everybody got their tokens, and then we gave everybody the real token and launched it. So they called it a rug pull. They came out and said, oh, we knew all along that these guys were scammers. And so from that point on, they've just been straight haters. And so, like, I just don't support anything that they do. If they were to be a little bit nicer, I'd probably support it, because, like, at the end of the day, I'm literally just here trying to build on Pulse Chain. Like, we're trying to add support for stuff over here. Nobody's scamming anything. Like, I've brought a ton of influencers over here that otherwise would never have even talked about Pulse Chain. So it's like at the end of the day, like, if we spent more time working together rather than trying to just destroy everything, like, I have no ill intentions. My goal has always been to see everybody else profit. And I figured that the best way to add value on Pulse Chain and streamline adoption was through a launch pad. So it does suck that they've been so hostile, because it's not just like, I mean, there's like a conglomerate of anybody with an orange inside of their name has just been like such a huge hater. So it's like, for me, I don't even look into any of their coins. Like, I know that some of those guys are smart and they have a lot of knowledge on liquidity providing, and, they have their value inside of the ecosystem, and they've provided a lot of value with adding these tokens. But for me, it's like, if you're going to hate on the project I'm working on, I'm not ever going to talk about anything that you're working on either. So that's just my opinion on that.
That seems like a pretty fair assessment. I'm not gonna lie.
That's fair. But
so
here's
this does bring. I got a little expansion on this, if you don't mind. So this kind of brings up something you talked about previously, which was the disbelief phase. And it seems that right now crypto is in that disbelief phase, but instead of just feeling our own emotions, we're just trying to trade meme coins. And it seems like right now is the time of meme coins. What do you think about this like larger narrative going on in the space? I mean, like, Solana's been popping off. We've been trying to make meme coins over on Pulse Chain. I know, even Base Chain kind of just seems like a bit of a meme chain right now, and they even launched their own meme L3 chain with the DGen chain. No affiliation, by the way. But it's like, are people losing the plot on this one?
Yeah. Well, I mean, realistically, it's just like early cycle narratives, because like at the beginning of the cycle was Arbitrum, and it was layer 2s, Optimism, Arbitrum. There was a lot of hype with people bridging over to these layer 2s. Certain bridges were taking off because they were getting more volume. So there's always like early narratives that play out in like a much bigger macro cycle. So, at first it was like Arbitrum. It was some of these like plays inside of the layer 2 ecosystems, whether it was DEXs or whatever built on them. We saw a lot of hype around those, specifically when Bitcoin first took off to 25K. And then from there, it's been meme coins, Dog with Hat, Pepe, all of these other ones, Doge, Shiba, they've all broken out of major bottoms and are about to be starting new cycles. So we've seen all chains, like you said, Coinbase, Solana, I mean, every other chain, like almost the only things you see going up are meme coins. So I don't personally believe that that's going to stick around. Like, there's going to be the meme coins that have been pumping. The Dog with Hat is Solana's dog meme coin. It's going to be the staple over there. It's going to keep doing well. Pepe is the OG altcoin over on Ethereum. It's going to do well. Dogecoin is a staple. Shiba is a staple. They already have that share. And I do think that there's going to be other meme coins that profit as a whole because of those, doing well as a conglomerate. But there's going to be a point where, money rotates into smart projects, like legitimate projects. And I think people are so enamored by the funny money just happening in the meme coins. But realistically, if you're not adding any value aside from just memes, your value proposition is really small. And yes, there's a lot of hype, driving all of that stuff right now because it's a hype narrative. But we see hype narratives always go through periods where they're no longer that hyped anymore and they're pulling back. Memes are always in the same boat where they go through their ups and downs. DeFi, NFTs, they're all in their own little narratives. And so as we're getting into a new all-time high, I still expect meme coins to do well because we're going to see them pump. But I think that all of the real utility tokens, things that are going to be doing like layer 2s with the Ethereum ETF, Ethereum still sucks. We're still going to have scalability issues. So perp dexes because centralized exchanges scammed everybody, layer 2s because Ethereum isn't going to scale, there's a lot of different narratives that I haven't even really taken off yet that I think are about to be in a big way. So the meme coins will just get overshadowed by other narratives. You know, they'll still be running and doing their own thing, but then it's going to be like, ooh, NFTs, ooh, DeFi, ooh, RWA, and ooh, over here. Everybody's going to be jumping to their own thing. So I think that as a whole, we're about to see like the whole tide lift all ships. It's been just a little bit here, a little bit here. I think the conglomerate as a whole is about to just kind of go up though from this point.
I hear you. And I mean, as the name suggests, you are the crypto OG. So is this meme season any different than anything else you've seen, or is this just par for the course?
No, it's definitely different. Like I've never
Really?
seen memes doing anything like this so early into a cycle, which ultimately, you know, Bob Lucas is just an OG. He's the real OG. It should say Bob Lucas OG at the bottom. But that dude, he brought up some really good points where he said that from everybody he talks to in crypto that's like building projects, that's a big time investor, that's like actually got exposure in the markets, he says the universal thought that they all keep saying is that they want this cycle to be the one where they can place their bets, they can cash out, and they can retire and be done and never worry about money ever again. And like all of the people I know that I'm close with that are building projects that like I'm working with, they have the exact same intention and perspective. So when we're looking at this, you know, there's a large amount of people that are looking to use this as like a liquidity cycle to take profit and move on. And Bob Lucas believes that the bear market that's going to follow after this cycle is going to be the mother of all bear markets, going to be a lot bigger. And so I think that with all of this hype, it's just an early sign that, you know, there's a lot more retail. We have the ETF, the institutions are here. If you look at the valuation of a market cycle, which let me share my screen real quick and see here. Here's where I find laser eyes for my thumbnails. But if you look at the market cycle chart, I love looking at this because this will put into perspective kind of where we're at inside of crypto as a whole. So you have smart money inside of the stealth phase. This would have been the early days of Bitcoin. I would say that like the peak right here would have been like 2018. And then you have the institutional investors, right? The institutional investors, they're getting in and they don't buy tops, they sell tops. The institutional investors have to have a certain amount of liquidity to even be able to enter the market and accumulate. We didn't have the liquidity for them to enter until this year. So inside of the ETF approval, we've seen BlackRock, we've seen these other big institutional banks and corporations move in and are buying Bitcoin by the the billions. And so what we're seeing right now, I think we've just pretty much entered or exited this, sort of phase here. And we're getting into where we're going to see media attention, enthusiasm, the public, and we're going to be starting one of these. So I do believe this cycle in and of itself is following a lot more of the trajectory of this being like the real sort of mania of a blow off top scenario, because we have all of the on-ramps like never before. We have all of the different, retail exposures that we've never had. Crypto is now like being accepted from an institutional level, which the institutions, they come in, they shill it to their mainstream news outlets so that the public gets to see it. The public goes and buys it, and then the institutional investors use the public as exit liquidity to sell. So, there's a lot lining up with this cycle being one where we end up seeing a lot of profit taking. Because I know for me personally, I'm going to be doing a lot of heavy profit taking. I don't want to hold anything in the bear market, because every time I've ever held anything in the bear market, I've just gotten scammed, and I'm better off just selling it and buying back in. So, I'm not saying that we're done having new bull markets, but if you look at what happened after the internet bubble, the NASDAQ literally went sideways for a decade, just kind of trending back and forth. So if we're looking at crypto being 15 years into a cycle, it generally takes about 15 years for a technology to get mass adoption. We're right around that same point, looking 15 to 20 years. Like, we don't know. It could be this cycle. It could be the next one. I don't know for sure. But this cycle already has all of the public demand, all of the institutional demand, to where if we have another cycle after this, that's like a typical 4-year trend, I think it would end up peaking early. But I don't know what's going to happen after this one. I just think that we could see a lot of profit taking with institutions paired with these people that have been mining Bitcoin from the early days, with the Ethereum ICO holders, all of these people that have been positioned for a long time. they're going to be taking profits on this stuff. And I think that it's going to ultimately create a pretty big drawdown to the downside, because with the memes and all of this stuff, it's kind of just pointing that there's a lot of funny money and euphoria in the market cycle as a whole. Because I've been around, I got in early 2016. Dogecoin was not even treated or accepted as anything legitimate at all. Like, it went up, but it was just like, whatever, this is Dogecoin, don't take it seriously. And then 2021 comes around, and because of the popularization of memes, we now get this acceptance. So in this cycle, we're seeing memes blowing up, and Bitcoin hasn't really even gone into price discovery yet. So I think that really is a huge red flag and a warning sign to everybody that, hey, this is a very euphoric type of cycle, and it shows that there's a lot more people that are buying. And, generally that doesn't just keep going up forever. Like, you would expect to see a crash after that at some point. So that's just my beliefs, getting that intuitive feel on what the heck's happening.
Yeah. Donovan, there's one person I know personally who I need to see this episode, because this fellas will know exactly who I'm talking about. This person is under the impression that because institutions are now entering the market, that now they're the ones that are going to basically dump on our head, and that it's too late. But what you displayed there, right, with the chart, and it was really cool, because you made the case that the reason why the institutions are only coming in now is because there wasn't enough liquidity in the market prior for them to come in. Because if they came in when Bitcoin was like at when the entire crypto market was only at $2 trillion total market cap, somebody like BlackRock, who has arguably $10 trillion assets under management, are going to enter a market with only $2 trillion worth of liquidity in total market cap. They're going to blow that shit right out of the water. And so now, because now there's much more liquidity, nations are adopting it. We're finally starting to get some kind of regulatory framework. Now that's when they're going to enter in. And that's why it makes a lot more sense where that, like, the position that we are in right now, that real parabolic blow off top, that makes a lot more sense to me now, right? Because all of the other players who were not able to play previously can now come in, and then compounded by the fact that the retail comes in, you have all these new narratives like AI, like layer threes, like the whole data availability thing, like RWAs. And so it's making me really bullish for this cycle in general, precisely because of all the things that you laid out. So after this stream, bro, I'm going to send this to him, because he's just been like, yo, it's over. I came in late. I'm not going to make any money. And I'm like, I need him to see this, bro, because this is going to give him hopefully some hopium, bro.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see his perspective too, but I think that we're going to make a lot of profit before we get to that point. Yes. Bob Lucas laid out another good point. He was like, the way crypto is like becoming such a spotlight in our election cycle, it's going to be fueling it. And with all of the news that we've just had over the last couple of days, more or less like the Biden administration taking more of a lesser stance approach towards saying, like, we're not, we might want to change some of these things, but we're also not going to outright outlaw it either. Whereas Trump was like, vote for me if you love Bitcoin, I'm going to save the day. So you saw him take such a heavy pivot towards being pro Bitcoin, that I think that the Biden administration knew that they couldn't step over too many toes by trying to be too negative, with them needing to get, needing them to just keep a level opinion on Biden going into this election year. So when all of this is happening and we're seeing the Biden administration taking a lesser approach, and it's fueling crypto higher, I think that we're going to end up seeing 2024 being really bullish. But because 2025 could be something where we see a lot more of, let's say Trump gets elected and he really ends up being super positive. I hope so, man. My God, for the sake of everybody in America.
You guys check out Donovan's Twitter and look at it, like his second. I was cracking up, bro. When you followed me, I followed you and I looked at your feed. I was like, oh, this is one of our guys, man.
Yeah, man. I was just sitting here like thinking about that today. I was like, man, in the last election, I was so positive Trump, and then I got so much hate for it. And so this cycle, I'm like, dude, there's a complete switch on people's temperament about Trump. Like, people think he's cool now and are actually like, I want this guy to win. This Biden guy screwed everything up. I talk to people that are in cities that don't even care about politics, which realistically to me, I don't really care about it either. But it's become such an issue with, like, like one side wants to take all of my money and like I can't do anything, and then the other side wants to like actually help businesses. So it's like there's a like you don't have to, it's not about racism or anything. It's literally about one side wanting to help people and one side not. So I like seeing all of this stuff happen. It makes me want to get more involved, just for the sake of people making money, people not struggling, people not being in debt constantly. Like there could be a positive way of doing things. It's just that I feel like there's just so many self-sabotagers inside of the government right now that we can't quite get ahead of all of this.
Yeah,
Trying to understand what the government or the machine wants to do is, it's a little bit outside like conventional rationality, because I look at our favorite punching bag here on the channel, aka Gary Gensler, and it's like, if you told me that they hired Gary Gensler to be the chair of the SEC, and then they took Gary Gensler, threw him in a closet, brought out a clone who they brainwashed, and that is the actual Gary Gensler we have, I would believe that. Because looking at the videos of him at MIT talking about how, quote, like 75% of cryptocurrencies are not securities, and then he's acting the way that he is now, it's like, as part of the crypto space, it's very weird and very hypocritical, and you're like, this is a complete flip and a change. But the other half of this is that he's also just been running the SEC in such a way that they've been pissing off traditional finance massively. And also not just traditional finance, but governance as well. Like Gary Gensler gets called in front of Congress pretty regularly at this point. I'd wager it's about once a quarter at this point. And every time it is just a 3-hour hearing of them being like, what are you doing? Why are you making these rules that no one is asking for? He was there today. Oh, well, he was there today. I know what I'm watching the rest of the evening. I get to go watch my C-SPAN interviews.
You think he's the fall guy?
No, I don't think he's the. Well, okay, we can chew on that. So, like, what do you mean? What would he be falling for? Do you think they're going to try to blame the entire ills of the Biden administration on Gary?
No, there needs to be a villain for people to hate. I mean, I don't know if this is some sort of distraction or something, or some sort of way for, or I'm speculating here, so I don't know. I'm having fun.
No, I would agree with you there, Will. I think he is the fall guy, right? He has to be the villain because what have you noticed? You've noticed that from the proponents of the SEC within both Congress and then in the Senate, right? You look at Nancy Pelosi, you look at Maxine Waters, you look at Elizabeth Warren, and then Joe Biden recently. What do they all have in common when they talk about crypto? They always defer to the SEC. They always defer to Gary Gensler.
Yep.
Right. And so if shit hits the fan and shit goes wrong, then they're gonna need a scapegoat. And because they're all pointing to him and say he's our fearless leader when it comes to digital assets, then obviously, what do we say, right? It doesn't matter whose fault it is at the end of the day. If you're the leader of something, right? If Biden's our president, the buck ends with him, and it's gonna be the same thing for Gary, unfortunately, right? So I think you're right. I think he is gonna be the fall guy. He is gonna be the scapegoat.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it, like I agree with your point. That's the way I look at it. But I think that also, like, these people are being paid to say what they're saying ultimately. So it's whoever's the biggest funder is going to sway these people, which is why I've always liked Trump. You look at some of those last dinners and meetings that he had when he got elected, and he's calling out all the politicians and everybody's booing him, but it's all of the people that are funding everybody else against him. So he's the only person that we can say, all right, he's got his own money, we don't have to worry about him scamming everybody. Because the issue with politics is everybody's being funded by some company and corporation to say what they're saying, and any laws that get passed, like, it's really just the biggest funder, I'm going to pass that. So you can't trust either side what they're going to say, because both sides are being funded. You just need somebody you can trust isn't going to be funded by any outsider, and they're going to at least just do the things that they're saying. And it's unfortunate that we don't have more of, like, I would say, political options to be able to trust. It just sucks that we literally have one option that seems like we could be trustworthy with. But like, politics as a whole are just so corrupt that I had a talk with RG not very long ago, and when we were on a call, he was just basically saying how we needed to work together, how we need to be putting ourselves inside of political movements, and being at the forefront of these different laws that are and regulations that are getting passed. Because if we don't do this, they're going to have a complete hold on every single thing in the market. And for the sake of Pulse Chain, you know, if we're going to have true DeFi in the market, we really have to make sure that we're navigating these and we're staying up to date with everything, because we're only a couple bad laws and regulations away from putting a serious damper on stuff. So I think that that's the big importance, is, you know, not so much letting everybody else do everything for you. It's good to, you know, have a political stance and stuff, but I think it's better to just go out and like make your own way, like make your own movements, show up in person to support things, because that's the only real way we're going to be able to make any sort of difference. Because like we're at that point where if we don't have a say right now, if we don't, you know, put our foot down with stuff, things are going to change for the wrong way. And crypto and blockchain could be the best thing for people, and it could be the worst thing for people all at the same time. It's really how we navigate this with regulation, because blockchain has the ability to just track everything and like make everything worse off than we've ever been, and the most terrible financial system you could imagine. And I don't want that. And I think that that's the trajectory we've been headed at. But if we can get, you know, a few sound people that are, you know, pushing for, I would say, more of a libertarian stance on like how blockchain was in 2016 and 2017, that's where we can actually get something going for, you know, people as a whole to benefit everyone.
Yes.
I know we've been trying to deviate away from traditional finance and especially like fiat currencies and stuff with all the crypto stuff. But I think the one silver lining I can draw out of this stuff, where we're kind of getting hitched to the TradFi wagon, which is that through the ETFs and through everyone hating the SEC, I think we're actually gaining a little bit of legitimacy inside of the crypto space. Because Gary Gensler is going to tell you 7 days to Sunday that crypto is full of scammers, fraudsters, and hucksters, and that you can't trust it, and that it's for the mass majority of all crime, even though that's entirely false. It's less than 3%. And it's like, this is possibly one of the ways that I think, at least for the normies and the people that don't like get crypto and don't follow the narratives. I mean, hell, we were talking earlier, it's like you go camping for 3 days and you feel like you missed a year. It's like, like the average person is not going to be able to keep up with this, nor do they want to. So the fact that we can kind of like maybe use a little bit of legitimacy from traditional finance to be like, hey, look, this stuff's like pretty good now, you might want to hop in before it's too late. I think that's a good narrative to be driving on. But to your point about like blockchain and cryptocurrency having that ethos of libertarianism from around the 2017 days, oh man, I'd love to see a revival in that. That is what I want to see.
Well, dude, that's why I came to Pulse Chain, is because I felt like everybody was like that over here. And it was the last opportunity I had seen of people that had that original like libertarian stance, where it was really just focusing on like having a decentralized alternative. Because we lost sight of that in 2017 when things started getting really hyped. People started to get more focused on profit, because in the early Bitcoin days, it wasn't so much about profit. It was just about like a few nerds running the Bitcoin network and like being able to do this new technology. And it was really cool. So, you know, most of those people, like that's all their intention was. And then from there, it was like, oh, this thing goes up a lot in value. Now I'm just going to actually, you know, mine this thing and turn it into an investment vehicle. Now we're at this point where things have shifted so much to where it's less about like the culture of Bitcoin, about being your own bank, about, you know, being sovereign with your money and digital identity and things like that. And it's become more of like, well, I want what's going to make me the most money and pump my bags the most. And so people are kind of taking that lesser approach, and they're giving up some of those original, you know, values, which it happens with everything. You know, anytime there's really like a cool culture around something that's more niche, you get people that start to realize how cool and niche it is, and everybody moves there, like California or Los Angeles or like a big city like that. It always happens. Everybody moves there, and then it gets tainted with all the garbage that the place where they just came from. So we're going to see the same things happen with crypto, and we kind of already have. BlackRock coming, all of the TradFi merging was inevitable. But now comes in like the regulation is like, okay, well, they're here. We're here too. We're all here together. But if we're not careful, the institutions already know how to rotate capital out of the weak hands into their hands, and they're going to do that. And that's why I think that, you know, them pumping the shit out of these coins this cycle, taking profits, giving us a really gnarly bear market for them to just sit there and accumulate, because they have the deep pockets to just sit there for a decade and buy crypto if it spends that long.
Yeah.
The other average person in the market doesn't have that long, because we're too short-minded. We end up capitulating before it. So, you know, there's a long-term thing at play, and there's a lot of factors with this cycle we just haven't had going into one before.
Yeah, to your point about the Pulse Chain space being one of those places where it seems like people are more willing to not just chase pure gains, but actually to build things that they think are valuable. I think you definitely see it within the space, and I'm absolutely going to try to give my man his roses every time, and that's RG3. I think that he is one of the people in the space that really exemplifies this, which is that he has vision and he has principles, and he sticks to them even when it is not financially beneficial for him to do it. Which is that the man's been out here for as long as he have, and he still really only likes talking about Hex, sometimes Pulse Chain, and that's really about it. Other than that, I think any other project that he thinks is like worthwhile and going to help the cause. So it's like, you see, I just use him as an example because I think you see people like him popping up throughout the space, and that people are willing and able to make those like the quote unquote negative EV plays to actually build something that is not maybe going to be worthwhile now and is probably going to cost them a couple $100, maybe a couple thousand now, but ultimately it's going to build something that's worth more than that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, no, I'm glad that Donovan kind of gave his overview there of the traditional space coming in. We've spoken about that exact same concept here a few times, especially during these times where the market pulls back really, really significantly, and there's a ton of FUD in there. One of the things that we warn the guys and the gals about is, look, if you're getting FUDed out of the market and you're selling into the purses of guys like BlackRock and Fidelity, who if you look at their purse, the amount of Bitcoin that they have accumulated in the span of less than half a year is kind of mind-boggling. But like you said, these guys, if you don't even have a time course of a single 4-year cycle, you have to realize that these guys in traditional finance, they're okay with 40-50% over the span of 10 years. That is their time course. They will outlive you. Even though they are older than you, they will outlive you within crypto if you are not careful. So that's that's number one, very good point. And number two is that we spoke about this a few episodes ago when we were talking about SAB 121 and everybody celebrating that, oh, look at that. It had an overwhelming victory in the Congress. It had overwhelming victory in the Senate. But you have to realize this. Remember the quote, Z? The enemy of my enemy is not my friend in this case. The enemy of my enemy is still my enemy. Our value, like, we just happen to share a common goal. But like Donovan said, you can't forget the spirit of what started all of this, right? Before everybody just cared about profit maxing and number go up, is that it's the spirit of decentralized finance, right? That's the spirit of crypto. And that's the thing that you cannot lose focus on, because otherwise, like Donovan said, these people are really good at washing out the weak hands. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing. I don't know if you do any on-chain analysis, Donovan, but I was looking at some on-chain data the other day, and it was fucking painful to see. The overwhelming majority of people that sold were from retail investors that bought close to the top. Right. The amount of people in profit that have been holding Bitcoin for like their coins have not moved from wallet to wallet in more than like 6 months. 95% of those people are in profit. So this 20% retracement, bro, all from retail. That's how sad it is. And like when you see that, you're like, oh, this is playing out exactly how we thought it would. That these people are selling at a discount to guys like BlackRock and Fidelity and the Franklin Templetons and all those guys.
Yep, it's exactly. I mean, they've been doing it for years, and with crypto, it's no different. This is just a much more volatile market. There's so much money involved with this than ever before. So it's like, it's going to be really cool because now we get to see how much better those guys are than everybody else, because they're just going to be wrecking everyone. I mean, we got to see how much better in the BitMEX days when they were counter trading everybody, wrecking everybody's stop losses in their trading ranges and just, wrecking everyone. That's what's been going on with all of these exchanges. They know where your stop losses are. So that's why you see those giant dark wall candles.
The scam wicks?
Yeah, exactly. It happens constantly. So now we're just going to be seeing like the legal versions of those from people that just have big money that can move the markets, that have all of the on-chain analysis and data to work with, that are just going to be, I mean, that's the beauty of crypto is, well, I don't know about the beauty, but everything's on the blockchain. So like all of that stuff they're going to be able to see it regardless, but you can also see what they're doing at the same time. So it's like smart people can kind of follow along with them and, they'll be able to profit, but it's going to be really interesting to see how all of this goes. Like the beauty of the blockchain is the fact that it's public, the fact that we can see all of these trades and track everything, that'll be really fun for anybody that spends the time to actually learn all of that. But if you're not, those guys do know how to do all of that. I'm sure they already have a giant task force that they've spent millions of dollars on, assembling, that have all of the greatest minds in crypto for researching this stuff. Like, it's going to be really interesting to see, because they're going to have tools that they've never even had in traditional finance to use against us. So we don't know what that's going to look like either.
Yeah.
True. Hey,
You're
Donovan, I did want to ask you about community stuff. So Jay mentioned it a little bit earlier, which is that we probably shouldn't be looking for enemies of my enemies, because that's not what you want. But are there any other communities that you've encountered that you think are actually like pretty decent or good, or like people that we could even like maybe bridge in or just be friends with the Pulse Chain community? Like, what are the other places that seem not terribly toxic?
Well, honestly, that's the thing, is like, I've literally never seen a community like Pulse Chain. You don't get the, like, there is a community on Solana, there's a community on Ethereum and stuff, but the way that Pulse Chain works, I've never seen anything quite like it. Like, it seems a little bit more like accepting for new people coming in. And then there's a lot more people that are like if somebody that's never made a tweet were to go and then make a tweet about all of the different communities, and then they were to do one about Pulse Chain, the Pulse Chain one would go mini viral, and there would be a lot of people like welcoming them in. And I don't see that anywhere else. Like, literally, I just don't see that. And so there was a lot of reasons for why I stayed at on Pulse Chain. The community was one, but then like those values that everybody had with like true DeFi and stuff, like that was the other big thing. So you have a perfect combination of factors. So when I was looking at these other chains, I haven't really seen anything quite like it. Like Metis DAO, that layer 2, they have a pretty good community, but it's a lot smaller and more niche than I would say even on Pulse Chain. Arbitrum has their own little community, but once again, a little bit more niche, I would say. And they're not as dedicated, right? Like, they're not solely maxis. Like what you see on these other chains with layer 2s, like they like Ethereum. Like it's a layer 2, it's built on Ethereum. So they like Ethereum, they like ERC20s, but then, they like Arbitrum. So like, I'm going to pivot towards this a little bit more. Pulse Chain people are like, Pulse Chain, Richard Hart, that's it. Like, I'm not messing with anything else. So you don't see, like, because everything usually originates from Ethereum, you don't see that same sort of like community approach that you do over here. So like, when I try and draw conclusions to other communities, like, it's hard for me to say that there's anything even like this, because like, I really haven't seen anything like this.
Fair enough. No, I've been looking for. I think we can only grow Pulse Chain so large as it is within our own community, and the people inside of our community can only get so big inside the community. Eventually, there's going to have to be new blood at some point. We're going to find a way to reach a new audience, or maybe a different chain. Although, I mean, if you listen to RG3, he's one of the people. He's like, we don't need other blockchain people in here. We just need more people to become like Hexikins and Pulsekins.
Yeah. Well, so the way I look at it is like, you have a lot of people over here that are like preaching Hart's Law, how bonded liquidity will rise everything together. When one rises, the kind of tide lifts all ships, so to speak. So the way I look at that is kind of universally the same with other chains. Like, if you have a token that's built on one chain, by you adding support and liquidity pools on multiple other chains, you're just going to be able to tap into all of those other pairs. So let's assume that you built on Pulse Chain, but then you have an LP over on like Solana or on Base, and then Base and Solana just ends up doing really, really well, or you just get traction over there for some reason, and then your LP skyrockets. It's going to cause all of that arbitrage. People are going to bridge over to Pulse Chain, and then it's going to end up causing the price to rise both ways either way. And then you might end up finding that you get a little bit more of a footing in another community because of that. But regardless, it's going to cause all of your tokens to rise as a whole. And so like, most people are only focused on Hart's Law on Pulse Chain. Like Tangang and the PTGC crew over there, they're really big on a lot of this stuff. And so you see them bonding liquidity with all of their new tokens that they're adding. The issue with that is it's almost just kind of like Ponzonomics, where, it works when there's new liquidity coming into the market, but the second there's no liquidity coming into the market, they all fall like, like rocks. So that's what's going to happen when the bear market starts. But if you're trying to have a more sustainable version of bonded liquidity, I think that the best thing to do is, not only can you add new tokens in your own ecosystem and bond those to each other, but you can also bridge your token out to other chains and had new liquidity pools opened there. And then that's going to open you up to an even bigger audience. Because for me, I like Coinbase a lot. I think that their value proposition with how many users they can onboard directly from their centralized exchange and their app to their layer 2, there's just no other value proposition quite like that in crypto. So I think there's going to be tons, like all of the retail money will probably be flowing through the base chain, and then from there even going elsewhere. And so I think that anybody that's building over there, even if you're building on Pulse Chain, the value of today's world is, if you are a good enough builder and you're willing to spend enough money on people that can do it, you can literally just be, cross chain. And I think that's the big value. If you want real DeFi, you can be on one chain, but you can be cross chain at the same time with your token existing on multiple chains at the same, all at the same time. So I think that that's what people should focus on, because if we're going to get to real DeFi, I think that everything will kind of just be in the big web as a whole, and it'll be the cryptos that do provide the most opportunity for money and liquidity to be entering from multiple places that are going to end up succeeding.
Yeah, agreed. Because you pull from the market share of participants within other ecosystems as well. And really, I know that a lot of people, like for example, RG3, right? God bless him. He knows that Hex and Pulse Chain is true DeFi. But in a sense, if we are only isolated within Pulse Chain, in a sense, that's centralized to a degree, right? Yeah. Because it's one ecosystem, as opposed to if, like you said, right, you bridge in your tokens and you create liquidity for them within other ecos, then not only do you get the market share and exposure there, but then it lines up more strongly with that spirit of decentralization, right? Because it doesn't just exist in one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
one more question here for you, Donovan, in the short time that we got left. What do you think are the narratives that are going to be taken off within this, like at the very peak, the parabolic run of this bull market? I know we spoke about a few potential ones. We mentioned AI, RWAs, the layer 3s. How about GameFi? What other things are you watching, and other projects are you watching that you think are going to be the next opportunity for people to make some real life-changing money within this next run up?
So I like starting off layer 1s. That's like the most obvious one in my eyes. I've always made some of my biggest gains buying those, because the way I look at, the way I tell people to look at is look at what's going to attract the most volumes, because that's what's going to drive price, the higher the liquidity and stuff. And so when you're looking at layer 1s that provide the groundwork for an entire ecosystem of tokens to be built in, like if it gets adoption and there's a lot of tokens building over there, the native chain token as a whole is going to do really well. The issue with buying layer 1s today is a lot of them have already gone through a lot of raises and VCs, and they're going to have token unlocks and things like that. So some of the upside will be capped depending on what ones you're looking at. So with this cycle, I'm not as focused with layer 1s. I'm much more focused on layer 2s, because I think that the layer 2s, are going to, with Ethereum having its scalability issues, layer 2s are going to see a lot more adoption. And it's a little bit more of a new shiny narrative to follow rather than the layer 1 narrative. Now, getting outside of that, AI, Sam Altman, the guy from the founder of ChatGPT, I tried to look at like the exact details, and it's like kind of unconfirmed that he even said it, but there's rumors that he's seeking $5 to $7 trillion worth of funding for his next project. And it's basically right now there's a huge issue with processors inside of the AI sector, and that's why Nvidia is doing so well. Nvidia's earnings were just up, like you were talking about prior to the stream. AI tokens as a whole are going to continue to do well because there's such an over demand for processors, and we can't quite keep pumping them out because of the demand for AI. And so Sam Altman is going to be doing his own new company that's going to help scale that and provide way more processors for artificial intelligence. And so if you're looking at $5 to $7 trillion, more than the entire market cap of crypto, just going into AI, like I don't see how the AI sector in crypto isn't going to just supermoon, because it already is. RWAs, real world assets, those are always really solid. That's one that hasn't really had a true cycle yet. I think that comes alive this cycle along with AI. NFTs did well in the last cycle. I think that they'll have their time to shine. But GameFi, we saw a little bit of hype in the last cycle with that narrative, but not to the extent that I think it plays out inside of this cycle. Those are three that I think do really, really well. Liquid staking, with Ethereum will be pretty good narratives. Decentralized exchanges like perp dexes, I think that those are going to do really well because of the fact with all of the collapse of centralized lenders and exchanges in the last cycle, people are going to look for decentralized alternatives. I bought like Apex protocol token really early, and that was Bybit's new decentralized exchange. That's where I do all of my leverage trading now. So like, I don't even have to use a centralized exchange to do all this trading. I can use the blockchain. So I think that those are going to do really, really well. A lot of those have great tokenomics with like really deflationary buyback and burns. You can earn yield by providing liquidity, which is what they use to, you know, actually make the trades work on their exchange. So I think that those are all really solid things. And outside of that, you know, I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head. There's Bitcoin network. I think the BRC and Ordinals Bitcoin NFTs, that's the other big thing I would for sure pay attention to, because the Ethereum TVL is like almost $70 billion. The Bitcoin network TVL is like $1 billion. So there's a huge disparity between those. And I think that we're going to see that not get super close to each other, but I think with how much market cap Bitcoin has, Bitcoin whales that are just anti-spending Bitcoin on anything will be much more willing to rotate Bitcoin into their own chain rather than do it, because they're so anti-Ethereum that they're not going to bridge Bitcoin and sell it to go to another chain. They'll buy altcoins that are built on the Bitcoin chain itself. So I think that Ordinals being the Bitcoin NFTs, and then I think the BRC20 tokens, all the tokens built on the Bitcoin network, those are going to do really, really well. And, you know, Coinbase, that layer two, the coins built on Coinbase, those are going to do really well. As far as that, I think that's literally all of the big narratives I can think of off the top of my head. But if you write those down, I think that those are going to be some pretty solid ones to follow.
For sure. As a bit of a follow-up, I was sleeping on the AI stuff initially because I guess I was a bit of a hater, and I was like, ChatGPT is nothing really more than just a predictive text mechanism. But I'm kind of coming around to it, especially as you say. But at the same time, though, when it comes to the AI projects, how do you vet what is actually a good AI project as opposed to somebody that just copy and pasted ChatGPT onto their website?
Well, so that's the thing, dude. Like, I mean, I work with a lot of projects that launch, like that are in like the early funding stages. And what I've noticed from working with a lot of projects firsthand is just like how much everything's kind of a big illusion. Like you can see a project with like tens of thousands of followers, but like so many of the followers aren't even real. And like you can see all of this support from influencers, but it's because they're being paid to support it. So like when you're there's like a lot of different factors in it. And so a lot of it can just be wishy-washy partnerships that people post on a website that don't actually mean anything, will never materialize into anything, but it's just something to drive the narrative. It's just something to give the people, because what I've noticed is it's just whoever can get their product out there to the most eyes, that can spin a narrative for why it's valuable and can get their niche community of people really like believing in it. That's what's going to succeed. And so like, it could be a complete scam. Like we're seeing, memes that are worth nothing and have no real value proposition, just doing really well because they have a community. So I think it has more to do with the community itself and the narrative that's behind it. And we're going to see certain narratives outperform, like AI, talking about this one specifically. It's going to do really, really well. But to answer your question, as far as like, how do you vet the projects? It's really tricky, where I would say you have to do a lot of research into knowing who the team is, understanding the tokenomics first, because the tokenomics are kind of the blueprint. How did they raise their money? How many different raises did they have? How much of those tokens were available in each? Usually there's 3 or 4 different raises that they'll go through. They'll go through the angel investors. They'll have another round of VCs. They'll bring on the KOLs and the influencers. Then they'll go to the public, like launch pads and stuff. Then they go to the public and like list the token finally. So they've already had all of these raises before. By the time you get there, everybody else is already up a few X's in price, if not more than that. So by the time the coin's pumping, all you're really going to be doing is just experiencing vesting unlocks with the founders getting their tokens, taking profit on you. And then they're going to be planning them taking profit is directly correlated to them basically doing their marketing campaigns. So when you see them doing marketing campaigns, they're taking profit because they have to supply the liquidity for them to sell. In the same way that why we're seeing institutions today, they're here and they have to provide the liquidity for them to actually sell into. So they're going to demand, they're going to give us all this demand. They're going to show retail, hey, look at this. This is going to blow up, and then they're going to flock to it. But in the insider workings of crypto, we're all doing the same thing. Like, it's all just this universal thing where everybody is in on an insider level, and they're basically just looking to take profits and then use the marketing strategies to take profits. So I think the best thing you can do is just look for the tokens that have the least amount of unlocks, have either had all of their unlocks or there just wasn't a lot of them to begin with. Teams that have proven to actively be building the entire time, because I don't have a problem with teams having unlocks and taking profits, but there's a way of doing it that's good and ethical, and there's a way of doing it that's wrong. And I think that it really just depends on how they're running the project. Like, if you're in the telegrams and you're seeing how different partnerships, how the partnerships are actually going to be working, at the end of the day, like, we really never truly know. And there's going to be a lot of tokens that pump really hard with a lot of unlocks, like Solana had unlocks the entire cycle and it did multiple thousands of X's. So when we're talking about this stuff, I think that, having a really good marketing approach, like having a backing of influencers and stuff, even if they're paid, it's what's going to get your project seen in the same way that you have to pay for, marketing to get your brand seen in the normal world. It's all universal. And so I think that the projects, even though they may be, there's a lot of insider funding that's already going on, that's going to happen inevitably. You're either going to be rich or you're going to be an influencer, because those are the only two ways that, like, they accept anybody in their cabal to get in at that point. So at that point, you're just like, okay, well, I have to have some other like niche, whether that's, I know technical analysis and I can spot patterns and I can, practice risk management and trade, or whether that's, I understand fundamentals. Yes, I see that these guys are already in and there's already insiders and whatnot. That's universal. But you can still see through the tokenomics and say, wow, there's a really small supply. There's a good amount of liquidity here. At that point, when we see a lot of hype coming into the market, we could see these sort of liquidity crunches, because that's the big thing I see is what projects create the flywheel where there's a lack of supply on the market. And then there's a huge demand for their coin. Because if they have the marketing support, they have all of the influencers and KOLs, they can start shilling them and get the price to drive and get new buyers constantly coming in. And if they are able to get that supply off the market, whether it's through buy burns, whether it's through staking and locking it up, Hex and Richard Hart, he got everybody to lock it up with Hex, which is why it was so easy to get it to drive up. Like, he held a huge supply, and then everybody else that held what was left was locking it for eternity. So it didn't take very much money to drive the price up. There's a lot of variables with this stuff. So I don't even think I probably helped anybody by answering some of that stuff, because like there is a lot to it. And like, I don't even know the perfect answer, but I gave you guys like all of the inner details for how this stuff works, to where like, if you at least understand that, you can, like think a little bit harder about stuff, like at least understand, hey, there's insiders with this. I have to be aware of that. I have to look and do my own research to like make sure that I'm going to be okay. And if you just aren't ignorant of those things, like, it's up to you. It's up to you at that point in the research you can do. Because, we all make mistakes. I still am going to buy some coin that has an unlock, or I'm going to get scammed somehow. Like, I don't make all the right decisions, but I will say that I think that if you just kind of follow some of the things I said, you'll be better off than you will have just if you didn't know any of those things.
Perfect. The people that are going to get stuff out of that will definitely understand you. So don't even sweat it for a second.
Yeah, bro.
Say, Will,
yeah,
do you have people? Go for it.
The people that are going to get value out of there are going to realize, oh, so par for the course. In order for me to become competent at navigating the space and knowing what projects are good and which projects are bad, it seems like there's a lot of work in order to navigate that. I kind of knew that already. So everything that Donovan said, yeah, that kind of sounds difficult, but coming in that it's going to be difficult for something to be valuable. And then the people that it's not going to help are the people who are like, oh, I just wanted the one thing to let me know when a scam is, when a project is good and when a project is bad. Those are people you don't have to worry about, Donovan, because they're
well, that's the problem. They want everything handed to them, and you're only going to make it so far if you have that perspective. Because realistically, almost all of what I know, like I had a friend teach me like the groundwork of like how to operate a wallet and how to send stuff and like how to use the initial phases of a blockchain. But like everything else was me learning from my own, like watching a YouTube video, or like everything I learned about trading was me watching YouTube videos, me paying for a course, and then just studying it from somebody else. So like, I think that like it's really just what you put into everything. That's what you're going to get out. Like it helps to have somebody that like knows what they're talking about, help kind of like cut through the bull crap so you can just get straight to like what's important. But aside from that, like there's not much more you can get besides having a good reference point, having sort of a blueprint to kind of navigate a map, I guess you could say, because you're still going to have to just like make your mistakes and learn your lessons that way, because most people aren't going to learn until they make mistakes. And you know, when you're proven right on something, it's the worst way to learn, because like if you just like, if you're like, oh, I think this is right, and then you're proven right, you don't even think about it again, versus if you're like, okay, I think that this is right, and then you're proven wrong, you're like, oh man, why was I wrong? Like, how can I not be wrong next time? There's a lot more of an emotional pull towards something like that. So I think that really, like, if people just focus on trying to learn, trying to grow as much as they can, but then understanding that there's not a perfect answer for everything. And as long as they're just willing to understand, like humble themselves, like humble yourself, or you're going to just get humbled, because like that's what happens to everybody. So the quicker that you can say, I don't know what I'm doing, I need to follow somebody that really does know what they're doing, even if you have to invest a little bit of money into that. You know, investing the money I paid into courses was some of the best, most useful thing I ever did. And it's just, you got to find the right teachers to be able to do that, people that have been in the market, because not everybody knows what they're talking about. Even people that have been here for a long time, you know, still don't have a full grasp on what's happening with crypto. So it's kind of a tricky thing to navigate, but there is still a lot of people that know what they're doing, a lot of great teachers, in Pulse Chain, a lot of great teachers in even the other communities. So like if you just do a little bit of, you know, research, like I feel like you'll be able to know fairly quickly who's, you know, been right about things and who's been wrong. Richard Hart, as much as I may disagree with his statements at times, it's not even that I disagree with his statements, I just like can't stand how he comes off on Twitter. That's literally the only thing. He's just a little bit of a narcissist. So I don't like that one thing. But as far as all of the other stuff, like the dude's smart. Like he's called all kinds of scams. He got people on chain. Like he's promoted like good decentralized belief systems at the core. And so I think that he's a smart person to listen to. Like his old streams have value in them. And like, you know, contrary to popular belief in the other communities about him being a scammer, like you really see that people that are honest, that don't necessarily need your money anymore. Like Richard Hart's so filthy rich even before Hex, even before Pulse Chain, because he's been a big investor into crypto, like Bybit, huge funder in a lot of these early startup companies that are worth billions of dollars today. Like the dude has a lot of money, which is why like him using the money to pump the tokens, I think that is a huge reason for why we're also going to see a lot more people want to come over here. It's interesting because this is the only chain where I've seen a creator that actually wants to drive up the value for his token holders. And it's like, I've never seen that happen anywhere else. And then you have a creator that promotes, you know, like true DeFi, somebody that wants to get people safely away from these corrupt exchanges that are going to steal their money. He's a really good person that's been around in crypto that definitely knows what he's talking about. Bob Lucas is another guy that I think really knows what he's talking about. I like RG a lot as far as the Pulse Chain crowd. That dude's awesome. Like really just a good all around person. But like, as far as that goes, like, it's not that I don't trust anybody else. It's just that everybody should just like really pay attention to who you're trusting and look at the track record of people, because like the track record speaks for itself. If people have been a scammer somewhere down the line, somebody's going to know, and you can find it somewhere on the interwebs because it's just there existing eternally.
Absolutely.
There's a reason why he's
right.
called DIY investing.
Had to do it on my own. I was a dropout. I didn't have any help.
Hey, well,
Bro,
you're
that
a
was a
success
hell of
story,
a
and that's the best
monologue.
part.
That was great.
I was gonna say, Will and I have been experiencing exactly what you've been talking about when it comes to the Richard Hart stuff. For anybody that's been catching the book clubs we've been doing, we've been covering Sci-Vive, and we're, I think, a little more than halfway through the book now. And it's like,
Yes.
I've become annoyed myself, which is like, do I think that Richard Hart is very good when it comes to crypto projects? Yes. Do I think he's a good author and book writer? Hell no. It's like, He's very good at specific things. Don't get confused because he's made very good like blockchain and crypto investments and built great projects. Does that mean that the man can write a good book? I'm arguing no. There's good wisdom and lessons, but I'm not saying you have to get it only from there.
I haven't read any of the
who-
books.
For those of you who have not read Sci-Vive, if you have read any of the Uncle John's bathroom readers, one of those collections is called the Colossal Collection of Quotable Quotes, and that's what Sci-Vive reminds me of. Is it's basically just a whole bunch of good quotes, and you could agree with a bunch of them. Some of them are contradictory to other ones later on in the books, and some of them make no sense. Some of them are out of context, whatever. But like overall, I would say it's chock-a-block full of good information. It's mostly preventative maintenance education. It's not like anything like, oh wow, I never thought about that before. It's like it's reminding you to do all these basic things that like no how does the phrase go? No master becomes a master without first mastering the basics. And that's what
Or
that's what
there's
sci-fi
no
really
master that
focuses on.
becomes a master without first subjecting himself to becoming a fool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that too. That's a good addition to that. But the point of Sci-Vive is that like these are just a whole bunch of basic things that people kind of skip over and they find themselves getting fucked in life. And so like Sci-Vive, it's not anything profound, it's not anything crazy. It's a whole bunch of just common sense stuff that people don't do. So I highly recommend that people like read through it and leave out the parts you don't like and attach yourself to the things that you need to work on and stuff. But I highly recommend it. It's a good audio listen. If you're familiar with a Wild SJ, I'm sure you met her during the Pulse Chain tour, but she does a fantastic job narrating it. And Annex the Hex Crypto Space. Annex the Hex Crypto Space. He's got a really strange YouTube name. He also uploaded a whole bunch where it's the more robot AI guy reading it off. That's the one that I prefer. It's a little bit quicker and there's like less pauses and tonal shifts. But anyways, she did a fantastic job reading it. So I can't recommend Sci-Vive enough to just basically everybody. And then people can pick and choose the things that they like from it.
For sure.
Hey,
Alrighty, boys, we have been going for a hot minute now, so we're going to actually finally start to close it out. Donovan, if you don't mind, stick around for the green room after. I'm sure we have a few thoughts for the debrief. But other than that, where can the people find you, my man? What do you have going on? And if you would love to plug anything, plug everything.
For sure.
I've got all your
I
links
appreciate
pulled
that.
up, by the way, so I can drop those while you're chatting. So don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Just drop them. Really, all I have is YouTube and Twitter. At D.I.Y investing on YouTube, and then at Vijalarazzi on Twitter, which I know nobody can spell that because it makes no sense why that's even that, but it's never going to get changed. So if you could just drop the links, that's the only way people will actually be able to find it. But yeah, Twitter and YouTube, that's where I do all my posting, just covering crypto, everything I've talked about today, mainly technical analysis. But yeah, I love the support. Have everybody that's been watching. I love to have everybody that comes over, supporting as a whole. Just appreciate everybody that's been tuning in. Appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a great stream, 2 hours long. Didn't know if my voice was going to hold up, but it worked out perfect, thankfully. So I just appreciate you guys having me on. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. We are super stoked that you came on. This has been a fantastic conversation and stream altogether. So with that said, I'll toss it over to Will. Will, where can the people find you, my man?
Oh, well, real quick, I just wanted to shout out your Facebook, D.I.Y Investing LLC, bro. I'm scrolling through and you've got like TA for Bitcoin when it's like $3,300, like moving up into the $5,500 range. And I'm like, man, this is making me feel so fucking good right now. I wish I could snag a Bitcoin at $3,000, but
yeah, I know, a long time ago, huh?
Dude, I mean, it's great. I liked and followed your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter. You've also got two paid things. So he hasn't showed these, but correct me if I'm wrong. But you have DIYinvestingcourse.com. Oh no, never mind. That's a domain. Just kidding. I thought that you were selling a course thing there.
Disregard, I have a
that
course. Let me pull up the
buy Stripe, the $2,000 one where
you
help people with trades.
Yeah, I have signals where I post all my trades and stuff. Once you're in, it's just lifetime access. So anybody that wants to join that can for sure join. I'm going to be moving all of that over to Telegram. It's on Discord now. That's just on the Stripe link, so you guys can sign up. Or if you wanted, you could actually just DM me on Twitter, wherever, or email me. All my information is, he provided that. And then you can pay crypto too. So however, but yeah, you know, I'd appreciate anybody that wants to come in. My Discord's also free for anybody that just wants to jump in there, and I'll have a free server over on my Telegram once I get that over there live and going too.
Excellent.
Last time Bitcoin was
Fantastic.
at 3,000, Will, was 2019.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like
I haven't posted on that Facebook in a long time.
it's linked on your YouTube description, and so I was just like clicking and dragging everything, and so I've got this like big old chart full of tabs. Yeah, it's great. But on the subject of Telegram, for the folks at home who are not parts of the DGen Roundtable Telegram, what you guys need to do is click on this link that I'm typing up in the chat right now. It is bit.ly/degenerate_roundtable. And what that will do is that will take you over to our Telegram chat. And if you guys are not already members of our Telegram chat, go ahead and click on that link, or you can click on this QR code that is so very conveniently, see if I can point at it. It's right over there, right underneath Jay. If you scan that QR code, it will take you also to our Telegram chat. It's free for now. It's not always going to be free. We're going to one day have to keep out all the spammers and botter guys, and we're going to have to do all sorts of things and take all your guys' money so you can join our Telegram. It'll be awesome. But until that point, it's free. So join it up while it's now. We're grandfathering in everyone who's in before we start charging for it. As far as where you guys can find me, you guys can find all of my socials at will.pls.fyi. Oh shit, and I also have a cookbook for sale. So you guys can't have this one because this one belongs to Tam Tam, and I have to go deliver that to her later. But the the cookbook is for sale. It's a Brothers Two of Them cookbook. It's basically a story of me and my brother cooking silly things that bachelors cook while they're going out and about traveling the states, building TV and radio broadcast towers and things of that nature. And it was a fun little cookbook. It's full of like silly jokes and fun things. I think there's 14 or something like recipes, or maybe it's 14 pages, but it's a good time. It's like fucking $10. So if you want one, there's only 50 of them. We only printed 50. We're selling them at cost. So just go to will.pls.fyi. And I suppose I should drop that in the chats as well. But while I'm grabbing that link, basically you'd send me $10 if you want me to hand deliver it. Send me $30 if you want me to ship it. And you guys can pull up my Ethereum and Pulse Chain address from that link right there, which I suppose I should drop. There's the copy button. Look at that. We do it live, folks. We do it live. So that's where you guys can find me. Otherwise, oh, and one more thing. If you guys are a Hexagon and you want to meet other Hexagons, then what you need to do, oh, dang, it just cleared up. That's all right. Once this chat goes away, you guys can see this is the Telegram group that I made for Hexagons to meet up with each other. It's t.me/hex_meetup. It's just a little, I would say it's semi-decentralized, but it's obviously one place where Hexagons go to meet up with each other. But it's basically just a Telegram room with a whole bunch of different states, whole bunch of different cities, whole bunch of different countries, all labeled as different topics in there. And we've had several meetups. It's basically just people say, hey, I'm going to be at a bar in this city at this time. You guys should come join me. And it's super cool, super fun. I've already done one down here in Dallas. I've done one up in Missouri. I know that SJ and Black Hexagon did one over in Los Angeles alongside with, some other crypto dudes. But it's super cool. So go to t.me/hex_meetup. That's what I got going on. Book club is going to be Zenith this week, but next week you guys can count on Sci-Vive again, and I'll be running that one. Mr. J, where can the folks find you, and what do you have going on in the near future, my friend?
First and foremost, Donovan, it has been an absolute pleasure. You are exactly how I thought you were going to be. And before we close out here, we have a fan in the chat, Mr. Hex Huddle PLS. He says he's just exercising his freedom of speech. Look, my friend, you are welcome to express how you might feel, but you might want to go all the way back to the very beginning and hear Donovan speak. If you've been watching us for a while, if you like our community, if you have faith and trust in us, you know that the people that we bring on, the people that we associate with, we do not associate with anybody who we believe are bad faith actors. And Donovan certainly is somebody who has done nothing, at least from the work that I've seen him do on YouTube, has done nothing but try and educate and help people as much as he fucking possibly can. Which is why, if any of the Tang Gang members are actually watching it, I think it's actually it would be great if you guys could squash it, because we know the Tang, at least Spooky, right? We know him personally, and Spooky is of a very similar like ethos. One of the primary reasons,
he's been my hater. Twos.
bro.
Love me.
Like one of the reasons why he created that community was to help and educate other people. So it's
Mhm.
like, if you guys could somehow get squash it, I think you'd realize that you have a lot more common than you do different. So
Yeah, I don't have any hate for anybody. I just get a lot of hate for pole slosh for some reason, but well, it's whatever. We're
Yeah, so
outsiders, so people don't appreciate us as much.
yeah. But just a little PSA there for hexhuddle.pls that we at least personally we believe that the Donovan does valuable work, at least for me especially. I personally think so. But as far as where you can find me, you can find me as always on Instagram at that's X, on Instagram at agent_J Schroth, on Twitter at _P90Hex. As far as what we've got coming up, we've got book club this Friday. We got our Sunday episode. Make sure to tune in because, like we said in the beginning of the week, shit was gonna hit the fan, and it did. Scan that QR code to join our Telegram chat because all of the information, our emergency streams, go to the Telegram first before we decide to talk about it or publish it on YouTube. So if you want to be first in line for information, go ahead and scan the that QR code. Otherwise, as always, we know that time is your most valuable asset, so we appreciate that you spend some of that time here with us on this wonderful Wednesday evening. And until next time, Zenith, take us out.
Will do. Folks at home, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ZenithDI, or just in the Telegram. Go ahead and hit any of us out with a nice little @ If you got a question, we're more than happy to answer it. As always, Donovan, again, thank you so much for coming on stream. This has been a blast. And to everybody at home, like Jay just said, thank you for spending your time with us. We know it is your most valuable asset, and we thank you for it every single time. So with that being said, until next time, we'd like to remind everyone at home to degen responsibly.